Good evening, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Germantown Board of Education to order at 7 p.m. and I ask that you join me in standing, if you're able, to say the Pledge of Allegiance and for a moment of silence. And the flag is over to your right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Official meeting notification, Mr. Stousland.
Yep, public notice of all meetings has been given by communication from the superintendent's office to the public, to those news media who have requested such notices, and to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Northwest Now, Express News, and West Bend Daily News. Public notice has also been posted in schools throughout the district and on the GSW.org website, as well as cable access channel 96.
Thank you. Roll call.
Soderberg.
Here.
Medved.
Here remotely.
Did you hear that?
No.
Say it again.
I'm here remotely.
All
Okay.
right, thank you. Loth.
Here.
Borden. Here. Myself, I'm here. Reineman.
Here.
And Pollock.
Here. All right. Approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Discussion? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We are now on to the favorite thing for me, board reorganization. We're going to approve the positions for president, vice president, treasurer, clerk, and CISA number 1 delegate. We do this on an annual basis. This is per policy and per regulation as per the state of Wisconsin. So we are all elected officials, but no one is the board president until such time that the colleagues on the board elect the board president, vice president, treasurer, and clerk. So exciting times. I've had the pleasure of being your board president for the last 9 years, and I've had a blast doing it. We went through a lot of roller coaster rides, Act 10, Common Core, CRT, which we're still involved in that, the masks, and a lot of other things. And it's been a pleasure for me to support everyone in the district. When I first ran 9 years ago, I ran 100% fiscally conservative, the taxpayer. When I got here on day one, I learned a big lesson. It wasn't about the taxpayer. Yes, it was, but it was more about the kids. And when you get a dollar from the state of Wisconsin, how do you use that dollar for the kids and also for the taxpayer? It's a very balancing act, and I'm pleased to say that the board that I've had, not this board, but also previous boards, we've all been like-minded, and we've all had the interests of the students in mind and also the taxpayers in mind. Past couple years has been very challenging. With COVID, as you all know, which why you're here for the masks. I understand that. I get it. I've been dealing with that for the last year and a half. But in the end, we live in a very small community. We're all friends, family, and all will be good. No matter what is decided tonight, no matter who the board president is, we'll be good. Life will go on, and we'll be good. So it's been a pleasure to be your board president, but guess what? I'm not going to be your board president anymore. Someone else here or on the phone will be your board president, and whoever that person is, whoever the vice president is, the treasurer, or the clerk, the Germantown School District is in good hands. We all try to do what's right for our almost 4,000 students, and I'm very proud of what we've all accomplished in previous boards. So saying that, I'm going to open, we're going to have the first vote, which is for the vote for board president, and after that vote is taken, I will not be the president anymore, which is a good thing, but the new person will take over and control the meeting. So I will entertain a motion for board president.
I would like
Brian Medved for president.
Do I have a second of that?
Second.
Do we have discussion?
I would like to make a motion to ask Mr. Ray Borden to be president.
We had a motion for also for Brian Bedman to be board president. So we have a second and we have discussion. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Nay.
Opposed?
Nay.
3. That motion passes. Thank you. We are now on to Mr. Bedman. Will you take over the board meeting, please?
Yes, we are looking for a nomination for vice president.
I'll make a motion to to put in Tom Barney be vice president.
Second?
Brian, you got to say discussion.
You have to say discussion.
Can you repeat the motion for me?
The motion was for Tom to be vice president.
And do we have a second?
We do.
Yes, we do.
Okay. And any discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Can somebody do roll call for me?
Roll. Can you do a roll call?
Passes 4-3.
4-3.
Okay, that passes. Congratulations, Tom. We are on to treasurer, I believe. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to nominate Michael Loth as treasurer.
I'll second.
Can you repeat the motion?
Yep, it's Michael Loth for treasurer. Tom made the motion, Bob second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Can I have a
Come
roll call?
on.
Roll call?
It's 4-3.
4-3.
Yeah.
Okay, that passes. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you.
We need clerk, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion for clerk?
I move the motion to have Amanda be the clerk.
I heard a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it sounds like that passes. Congratulations, Amanda. And we're also looking for a CISA 1 director.
Delegate, yep.
Do I have a motion?
I'm happy to continue that, delegate.
I'll move to have Amanda continue that position.
Second?
I hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes. Congratulations again, Amanda. At this point, I do have someplace I need to be, which is why I'm joining remotely. And at this time, I will turn the meeting over to the capable hands of our new Vice President, Mr. Barney, and I will let him run the rest of this meeting. I will be back at the next meeting. I'm humbled and honored to be the new board president, and I am fully aware of the amount of work that we have to do, and we will be getting to work immediately addressing all the issues that are facing the district moving forward. And I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and I hope all goes well. I will get an update on the meeting or be able to watch the meeting later on and get up to speed. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item 4A, presentations, MacArthur students and student representative.
Yes, I'm going to have Dr. Williams come up and present his students.
Greetings and welcome to MacArthur Elementary. Tonight I'm very excited to introduce our school counselor and our MAC leaders. Before they do their presentation, I want to give a shout out. Our office staff, we recently were in a position to hire some great folks to serve in this regard. I would like to give a shout out to Michelle Krieger and Jen Mason for their efforts. If you talk to, yes. Things are going very, very well in that regard, and so I just want to introduce again Ms. Jors and our MAC leaders.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley Jors. I'm the school counselor at MacArthur. I have some students here today that are going to introduce two awesome programs we have at MacArthur called the MAC Leaders and Game Leaders, and they're going to share some of the things that they did this year.
my name is Xander, and I am a MAC leader at MacArthur. A MAC leader is a person who is respectful, responsible, hardworking, and a leader in the classroom and in the school. We were selected by teachers to represent MacArthur as the Germantown, to help the Germantown community. MAC leaders work with Kiwanis International, who helps out the community with a variety of events, including senior bingo night and the holiday parade and breakfast with Santa.
Hello, my name is Tommy and I'm a MAC leader. Since this year was a different year, many of the community events were canceled, and thus we wanted to share a few different things we did this year. When the school year began, we created a video highlighting some of the staff in our building that students often see, but maybe we're not sure who they were. It was a fun way for students to get to know all the staff at MacArthur.
Hello, my name is Nolan and I'm a MAC leader. Another video we created was explaining how to be responsible in the bathroom by washing your hands and throwing away garbage, with your winter gear by hanging up coats and putting boots under your hooks, and by taking care of your materials by putting things away where they belong. It helped remind students throughout the school year.
Hi, my name is Bryn, and I'm a MAC leader and a game leader. Game leading is another program we have at MacArthur. Game leaders work in teams of 3 or 4 to teach playground games to younger students to help learn fair play and good sportsmanship. This year we had to play many social distancing games and become masters of creating and teaching obstacle courses.
Hello, my name is Caleb, and I'm a MAC leader and a game leader as well. Both programs are all about helping students and being a good role model. So when the kindergarten and first grade teachers asked the MAC leaders to come help the little kids get on their winter gear, of course we said yes. It was fun teaching games in the snow.
Hello, my name is Ben, and I am a MAC leader. As MAC leaders, we also participated in Dr. Seuss Week by going into classrooms and reading to the other students. The students were so excited to have us come into their classrooms. Overall, being a MAC leader has meant a lot to us. We have learned about helping others, the community, our school, and being a leader. It has been a very rewarding experience, and we're all happy we were able to be a part of it.
They really did a wonderful job this year, so thank you for giving them an opportunity to present on some of the things that they did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
comments or questions from the board?
Thank you guys for coming up here. I know it's a big deal to come up and talk to a bunch of people that you don't know, right? Everybody's got masks on, you can't see us, but thank you guys very much. We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm going to fully admit I'm biased when it comes to this particular school because this is our home school for our kids. So I'm familiar with a couple of these kids, I'm familiar with the staff, and obviously Dr. Williams. Thank you for coming tonight and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Stelson, do we have a student representative report
Yeah,
tonight?
I'm just checking if Tatum Catalano is here. And as she comes up, this is Tatum's last meeting with us, and I want to thank her for her time as the student representative, and it's been an interesting year to be such that, and I've got a little card for Tatum as well. So.
This is my last update, so after I give it to you, this is Hannah DeGrace. She'll be the new student representative next year. She's the vice president of student council right now, and she's very impressive, and she will be an excellent student representative. So with that, at Amy Bell, students are focusing on gratitude for the months of May and June. This Thursday, students will celebrate their school spirit with Hat Day, and coming up on May 21st, it's Popcorn Friday. At County Line, the 5th graders will be graduating their DARE programs this week as they get ready for middle school next year. Additionally, on May 7th, the County Line PTA held a Mother's Day Marvelous Muffin event to celebrate the special women in their students' lives. Finally, to celebrate Teacher Appreciation, students brought in letters for their teachers, received lunch as well as an ice cream treat, and students wore their teachers' favorite colors. Rockfield's garden is getting ready for some flowers and vegetables. It will be ready to go for the summer school gardening class. We are also excited for our end of the year planning. They have a Day of Awesome, In Our Future, and Field Day coming up. At MacArthur, students have a lot to be proud of. 3 of their DI teams qualified for global finals at the virtual state competition. Additionally, make sure you keep an eye out for the school's in-person students' virtual concert. Students have been practicing songs that will be recorded and then sent out to families to mimic a regular concert. At Kennedy, KMS students and staff are enjoying all the learning and fun activities spring brings. The track team has been busy with practices and meets, while the spring variety show rehearsals are in full swing. Germantown Youth Futures, KMS Student Council, and the KMS PTA help staff celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week, which is May 3rd to May 7th, showing teachers extra love for all the additional challenges that they have had to overcome this year. Thank you to everyone who made this week special for their staff. And finally, at Germantown, they finished up their Teacher Appreciation Week on May 7th, which was complete with breakfast for teachers on Monday, Cafe Zupa's gift cards, a snack cart, and many other extra surprises. We are so thankful for our teachers. Additionally, spring sports are in full swing with Germantown girls soccer starting their season off 1-0 and girls softball with a 2-1 record. Thank you to W7 for covering all of our girls' spring sports this season as we are their home school. And thank you guys so much for allowing me to present to you this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Comments or questions from the board? All right, we'll move on to item 4B, 6th grade coordinated arts. Mr. Southland?
Yes, I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. O'Brien and Mrs. Clymer.
Sure. The proposal that we are bringing forth this evening would be to sunset the Tech Apps course in the 6th grade coordinated arts and replace it with an Intro to Spanish and an Intro to Foods course. And then the Intro to Spanish would be an introduction of Spanish, a focus on understanding the importance of studying a foreign language and the cultures of Spanish-speaking countries. And the Intro to Foods course would introduce basic kitchen skills by preparing snacks. So what I put in the board background was the budgetary implications, the largest one being the staffing. So there would be a reduction of a 0.96 FTE and an increase of 0.1, leaving us with a net decrease in staffing of 0.86. So a more formal proposal will come in the next 2 weeks, and I just wanted to make this as an information item for you to know that this is going to be coming as a formal proposal later this month. So Mrs. Clymer is here to answer any questions that you might have as an introduction to this proposal.
Board, any questions?
I have a question. What exactly is the Tech Apps class? As the tech guy on the board, anything that's got tech in it, I like, and seeing something sunset doesn't sit real well with me. So what are we sunsetting?
They still will receive the tech classes for Mr. Thilke and Mr. Parrish in the 6th grade. So it's not doing away with all tech classes. These are the app classes that teach the kids some introductory skills on tech applications that they might use in their core academic subjects. Some of the things that are covered are just the basics of Schoology, composing an email lesson, the Snap and Read universal tool, typing, some Chromebook picture Google Drive lessons and split screen lessons that are on Google. So essentially, it really, several different things to do with Google Docs, Google Sheets, that type of thing. It's really a lot of applications that the students use on a regular basis in their core academic classes and can be integrated. The learning of those things can be integrated through their core academics.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? All right, we'll move on to item C, the ACE committee update.
Thank you. I'll take that. Just a couple things. The ACE committee has a meeting this Wednesday, and the subcommittees have been working on a few things. I just want to share some of the information that's been talked about, and there's no decisions on any of these things, but they're talked about and feel like they're good things for our kids. And the first one is, and this was included in the packet, but just the one-page climate survey as an idea to create a baseline to measure as we move forward throughout this next year. Is there do we see changes with our students in their perceptions? And then the other suggestion that we've been talking with several schools and outside groups, and one thing that keeps coming back is that in order to make a real change in your district around equity work, to have an expert in the system is the true way to make change. So we've had that discussion. The group will have a page on our website, a page that would have just information of who the ACE members are, resources for families, and we're currently looking at other districts' websites to get ideas from as well, and really just an informational page. And then a program that we're going to learn about. It's a free program called Listening Library, and we're going to learn more on this Wednesday. But my understanding is it supports books that represent all cultures and backgrounds through the library, and we would bring more information about that once we learn on the May 24th ad hoc curriculum meeting. So, and then we did. Several of us met with an outside group on restorative practices just to learn what that is and to understand what maybe some possibilities are for our schools. And then the last thing I want to touch on, after last board meeting, CRT was talked about, and the motion rescinded the ban, but there were still some questions on it, and I just want to read a section of the letter that was sent out. This is also on our website, and it's currently, so if you go back in our district 10 years ago, nothing has changed around CRT in the last 10 years. It's always been in these two elective courses, the AP Literature Composition, the Critical Thinking and Writing courses, which are upper level elective courses in our high school. CRT is mentioned in the AP Literature as one of many theories that are taught and concepts that are taught. And an example of some of the other theories are feminist theory, political theory, economic theory, postmodernism, postcolonialism, psychoanalytics, and structural theories, just to give you a flavor. The two mentioned courses have been offered to students for many years, and in short, nothing has changed from previous years. CRT is not taught in our elementary, middle school, or any of the required coursework in the high school, only in those two elective courses. And the other addition that was made, the motion that was made by Brian Medved, was also to have the ad hoc committee, curriculum committee, look at how does two of our policies work, or how can they be connected to these two courses. And the one policy is on controversial issues, which we have, also the parental consent information policy. And so that ad hoc curriculum committee will work those two policies into those courses, meaning students who sign up for those courses will have an understanding, will see the syllabus, their parents will see it as well. So that is where we're at this time.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board? All right, thank you for the update. We'll move on to item 5, citizen comments. You all should have received a copy of our policy if you signed up to speak. So we're going to ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less so that we have time for everyone to speak. First up, Ellen Galtrey. Welcome.
I am here today to speak in regard to an email for a book study that was sent out to the entire Germantown School District staff as a potential discussion topic for a teacher's in-service that took place in March 2021. The staff was presented with a book and discussion guide for a book titled Me and My White Supremacy. This book refers to terms such as white privilege and white supremacy and white centering, just to name a few. Everyone has a story to tell, and this is mine. I want to explain what these words mean to me personally. I am a first-generation immigrant. My parents left communist Russia with 2 young children to escape religious persecution. In fact, this persecution had been going on for years. Many of our relatives were murdered during the Holocaust, men, women, and children shot and killed in their homes. We left with nothing more than the clothes on our backs, chasing the American dream, and not knowing a word of English. When we left, we were immediately citizens of nowhere, as the USSR banned us from ever returning to the country after you left. My father worked many years as a maintenance mechanic, making minimum wage, and worked 7 days per week, as he could get double pay on Sundays just to make ends meet. I did not grow up with white privilege, and I am not a white supremacist. These types of phrases are hurtful and impactful and are clearly stereotyping and discriminatory. Stereotyping happens when we attribute a certain trait or characteristic to an entire group of people. Discrimination is how we then act based upon these perceptions. Therefore, I cannot help but think that if this type of material is so casually presented to our teachers, then teachers, whether knowingly or unknowingly, are teaching the same type of information to our innocent and highly impressionable children. Labeling an entire race with these terms is unfair and cruel. I have 3 beautiful children enrolled in the Germantown School District, and they have done nothing wrong. Lastly, in regard to CRT, I understand that CRT is currently taught in 2 AP classes at the high school. However, I feel it has the potential of being integrated into our curriculum in the future, especially when emails like this one are being circulated to the entire teaching staff by Brenda O'Brien, our Director of Teacher and Learning. We need a better solution, and CRT is not it. I suggest you reach out to the entire Germantown community and the families that live here to get a clear understanding of how the majority of the population feels about CRT, possibly with a survey sent to all residents of the district or on a voting ballot. I do not believe that anything that is this controversial and significant should be the decision of the board. It should be the decision of the entire community and the parents that live here. Therefore, CRT should be banned immediately until this is done. We stand united, not divided.
Thank you. Ina Turner?
Yes, hi. Ellen is my sister. My nieces and nephews attend Germantown School, and I'm here to support her for we the parents. And we stand firmly against any attempt to implement critical race theory into the Germantown School District or any school district via any venue, such as AP elective classes. This ideology is a war not just with individuality and the free market, but with the very foundational principles of our republic. We cannot allow the poison of this ideology to be promoted in our schools or anywhere in our country. The purpose of education, such as this school, is to prepare our children to be critical thinkers and productive members of our society by providing them with tools for success. It should not be the goal of our education system to become a center for indoctrination of our children. However, that is exactly what critical race theory is all about. When reading the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, you will find that one of the tenets of Marxism is state control of our education system. For Marx, it was all about fueling class division and warfare. Today's critical race theory introduces and adds race to this crazy ideology. Marxism was focused on the destruction of the individual and advancing the idea of collectivism. Sounds great on paper. Critical race theory does exactly that. It redefines us based on race rather than our individuality. It declares that America is, always has been, and always will be a racist country. It declares that, it erodes the fundamental premise of America, namely equality of opportunity for all, and replaces it with equity, to be achieved by equality of outcomes, not by our successes individually. Current buzzwords that are being adapted by some schools like project-based civics class, a euphemism for giving kids class credit for participating in left-wing protests, as well as the concept of civics academies, also known as incorporating critical race theory into our social studies classes, which do nothing more than open the door to this left-wing activism among our children. Being a Russian immigrant, I will leave you with a quote from Vladimir Lenin, who I'm sure most of you know. Give me just one generation of youth and I will transform the world. And give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seeds I have sown will never be uprooted. We, the parents, no longer stand by and allow our schools to become left-wing propaganda machines. We will defend our children from this vile ideology. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Harden?
Good evening, everyone. Alex Harden from Colgate. So I'm going to start just going to ask a quick question of the board. I'll ask it once, and then I'm going to ask each of you because I think it's an interesting and fairly simple question. And that is, do you support prohibiting all forms of racial discrimination against students of all races, including black, white, Asian, Hispanic, in our classrooms? Ray. Do you support prohibiting racism?
During public comment, it's not a back and forth.
During public comments.
It's public comment, not discussion with the board.
So you can't answer a yes or no question about if you want to prohibit racism?
It's policy.
Answer the question. Okay, so the board refuses. I'll give everyone, including Brett Stousland, the benefit of the doubt and assume that the answer would be yes. I think we're all in good company and that everyone here would oppose racial discrimination against people of all races. Which is very interesting, and Ellen mentioned this when Brenda O'Brien sent out an email about 6 months ago encouraging teachers to participate in a book study around a book called Me and White Supremacy, and I'll come back and detail a little bit more what this white supremacy is. But what I'd like to call out in particular is in this email, teachers were encouraged, if they wanted to use this study as their professional goal, that evidence of progress must be demonstrated, which would include actions that teachers are taking to implement in the classroom as a result of the reading Me and White Supremacy. So that's kind of interesting. So what is this white supremacy? I think, what's the big deal? White supremacy is bad, isn't it? Well, this white supremacy isn't what the bad guys in World War II believed. It's not what African slave owners believed, okay? To quote right from the book, right from Me and White Supremacy, the author indicates, in fact, that the idea that white supremacy only applies to so-called bad ones is incorrect and dangerous. Furthermore, white supremacy is far from fringe. Okay? In white-centered societies and communities, which, by the way, would include Germantown, white supremacy is the dominant paradigm that forms the foundation from which norms, rules, and laws are created. This is from a book study facilitated by the Director of Teaching and Learning. Furthermore, white supremacy is a system you have been born into. Whether or not you have known it is a system that has granted you unearned privileges, protection, and power. I think that's somewhat interesting. Now, Brett has described on numerous occasions that critical race theory is only taught. Critical race theory, by the way, this form of white supremacy is the chief fundamental principle of critical race theory. It is. And Brett has described or has indicated that critical race theory is only taught in 2 AP classes. I believe you, Brett. I believe that critical race theory, by that name, is only taught in 2 AP classes. However, there's a big difference between teaching a topic and encouraging teachers to implement a topic in classrooms. And that's what's being done. I mean, it says it right in this email. So the reason for me being up here is the board, I hope you're aware of this. when Brett tells you, no, it's no big deal, critical race theory is only being taught in 2 classes. Not exactly, okay? I hope you realize when Brenda O'Brien sits up in front of this group and waxes philosophical about how the loss of critical race theory is the loss of an important pedagogical tool, that this is what we're talking about. It's far from a pedagogical tool, if you ask me. And I'm sure if you talk to Brett about this little book study, he's going to dismiss it as only 10 or 12% of teachers participated in this book study. Interesting. I guess, so let me get this straight. We, parents of kids in this district, shouldn't care. We shouldn't be worried at all that 10 or 12% of teachers are being indoctrinated to teach our kids cultural Marxism to, the email says, let me read it, to implement in the classroom the results of reading this book about so-called white supremacy. We shouldn't be at all concerned about 10 or 12% of teachers doing that, but we should be deathly afraid of a virus that has a 0.2% infection fatality. Infection fatality rate, so scared to the point that we force our kids to wear masks 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So board, I'll be quick with the rest of this. If you want to keep burying your heads in the sand, as this racist drivel seeps into our schools, then I would just ask, get off the board and make room for some people who want to unite our community and not continue to divide.
Thank you. Gail Trapp?
Thank you. I'm Gail Trapp. I'm a resident and a grandmother. Been in Germantown schools since 1987. This is my part 2, since I spoke a while back, as to why I don't agree with critical race theory. States across the U.S., I hope you are realizing they are starting to ban critical race theory from their public education and government positions. And people are starting to look into it, and guess what? They don't agree. They don't want critical race theory in any aspect of their lives. I'm a big fan of Ben Carson. I don't know if anybody else in the room is. Very, very wise and smart man. He had this to say about critical race theory. Critical race theory teaches to hate America and despise its history. Our schools have been teaching less American history and civics. Critical race theory is a deliberate means to sow division and cripple our nation from within. Now, one example that I read earlier was because it causes division, and then there are things that fuel that division, and then the people themselves will then deconstruct their society from within all by ourselves. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Exactly what's going on in our society and in our country right now. And you hear it every single day on the news. And we wonder why our kids are having difficulty in school. What do you think this is doing to our teachers? What if our teachers don't agree with this? Do we have a division amongst our teachers? I think we need to be aware if there is, because we're alienating teachers also. For me personally, I turned off the mainstream media about a year ago, and I use other sources for my news because we're being lied to as a country. But Ben Carson goes on to say that critical race theory is an anti-American indoctrination. It's making your white students believe that they are bad people, and that black students are victims, and that the whites have created all of their problems. So how does this affect the self-image of our students while they're developing? Good question. He also asks, would you rather judge someone on things that they cannot control or that they can control? Nobody can control what their race is, but they can control their behavior. So last time I was here, there was a young dad who was a gentleman right before me, that when he got up and he talked about critical race theory being a Marxist-based theory, it was not received well by the group that was listening. So then I went back home and I looked up by myself all the origins of critical race theory, and I found that in 1937, a Max Horkheimer published the Germany's Frankfurt School's manifesto called Traditional and Critical Theory. Critical race theory is an offshoot of critical theories. And Max Horkheimer, I think that's how you say his name, Horkheimer, is a documented Marxist. It's well known, documented. Go back and look it up yourself if you want. And if you didn't know, the Frankfurt School has Marxist and communist founders. So we're going to go off of something from Marxism and communism? Really? So when I heard that schools wanted to start implementing lessons, you know, across the country and everything on confronting your whiteness in our classrooms and the 1619 projects, I say absolutely not. Keep them out of our schools. I heard last week on the radio about our teachers in our school being asked to read the Me and My White Supremacy book. And this whole movement that is going on right now is a total assault on the Western civilization, our family structures, our family values, our American history, and my own right for freedom of religion. Critical race theory is not an anti-racism type of theory. Some teachers that want to teach this and have said that parents just don't understand how it will be implemented into subjects and into the classroom. Like we can't figure that one out. I am smart enough, though, believe it or not, to determine that Marxism will never be the answer for racism. So have your students then learn how to research how well Marxism has worked in other countries like Cuba and Venezuela, and they are now third world countries thanks to Marxism because everybody's equally poor except for the elite people. So I agree with the students that were here last time that I spoke when they were holding up signs saying keep the politics out of our classrooms.
Thank you. Jason Pipcorn.
Hi, I'm Jason Pipcorn, out of Colgate. I have 2 kids in Amy Bell School. I'm assuming you've all read the emails I've sent you weekly on how bad maths are for kids and the proof. And the proof how bad the maths are to the kids, the facts, all the things. I'm assuming you've all read it. So I'm not going to get into those details about that. I just want to tell you a couple stories. Talking to a student, we were laughing and joking how you guys mask the kids up for 8 hours a day, but they can take it off, they can go to lunch. They play at recess without a mask. We just thought it was kind of funny. They're the same kids, no mask, right? Next thing that student tells me is, you know what, if I was walking down the street, if I was sitting in a restaurant, my teacher was in that restaurant or walking down the street, I wouldn't even know it's my teacher. That's sad. That's absolutely sad. Think about that. These teachers have no identity to the kids. Just think about that. I got my kids telling me they can't understand the teachers half the time. They just nod and say, yep, yep, yep. That's not, I didn't sign my kids up for that, just to assume what a teacher's saying and just nod because they don't want to be embarrassed because they can't understand the teacher. Again, think about all these things. I know you guys just want these muzzles on these kids. Kids aren't passing this virus along. Kids aren't, what do you say, 0.2% affects these people, right? It's crazy to me. I want to see these kids play sports. I want to see them laugh and smile. I want to see plays. I want to go meet my kid for lunch one of these times. Like I don't work early. I used to do in the past. Can't do it anymore. We can't even get in the schools. It's crazy. Putting a mask on my kid should be up to me. None of you. None of you. I hope you heard that part loud and clear. It shouldn't be up to you guys. It should be up to me to put a mask on my kid. Just remember this. The particles of COVID are 1,000 times smaller than the holes in all your masks sitting up there. Your masks are doing nothing. You feel good. You feel real good inside because you put a mask on. It's all show. Does nothing. Security blanket, exactly. Thank you. I've also been told, I don't remember who responded to one email. Thanks for whoever did, because half of you didn't respond to my emails. Mine either. Yeah. 89% of the staff has been vaccinated, right? So I was told months ago, once this vaccine gets out, we're going to get back to normal. 89% has been vaccinated, right? We can all vouch for that. We've been told that in the last 2 meetings. The rest of the teachers aren't going to get vaccinated. What are we waiting for to take the masks off these kids? We don't have to. Whoever wants to keep the mask off, right? You want to mask your kid? Great. We have no problem with that. But it should go both ways. That kid shouldn't get bullied. My kid shouldn't get bullied for taking the mask off. I beg you. I'd sit here. I'm just a concerned dad standing here. These things are messing the kids up mentally and physically. The blood's on your hands when all this happens and years down the road. Take the masks off the kids.
Thank you. Teresa Schneider. Welcome.
I brought visual aids for everyone. So I'm going to read, after you all get one, my letter to the board is on the front. But I have one other comment to make. Listening to Jason, I forgot about the story. I sent it to a friend this morning that it was not in our district, but a group of 5th graders won a reading contest in another district. They were awarded 30 minutes of maskless time. We are now using oxygen as a reward for our children. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. We sent out a petition last week. Started on the 5th for all the Germantown residents, loved ones of the Germantown kids, that are in the district and that kind of thing. And the heading on that petition said the following: "We, the parents of the Germantown School District, are respectfully asking the elected members of the school board to vote on mask wearing for the remainder of this school year and the 21-22 school year to be optional, per the parents' discretion. Parents need to make the decision to have their children masked in school if they deem it necessary. Secondly, we, the parents, are asking the Germantown School Board to discontinue the policy of mandatory quarantine if a student is contact traced. The percentage of students who become positive after an exposure in our school is minimal. 10 days of missed class time is detrimental to the learning environment and the mental health of our children, constantly being bounced back and forth from face-to-face to virtual and back again. We, the parents, understand that it will be our decision to quarantine our children if they are contact traced by the school." That is what was on the petition. 349 parents, loved ones, people, sorry, didn't break it, okay, responded that they agreed with this. So that's just, instead of 349 parents standing up here and telling you the exact same thing, I printed it off, gave it to you, there we go. Now for my personal statement tonight. While we understand that the school district is taking their cues from the CDC, as well as the surrounding districts, we would like for the board to consider the minimal amount of students that are testing positive during their quarantine, okay? I did attempt to get numbers from Nurse Tammy. She's very busy. She was not able to get back to me with that. And she has her own presentation tonight, so I'm not going to do that. But I did attempt to get actual numbers before I spoke, okay? The few that are, from what we can gather, are testing positive at the end of their quarantine period and after they have been still participating in outside the district sports, working, and gathering in large groups. These are kids, the high schoolers, older kids, but they're still kids. While we would like to believe we have complete control and know everything that they're doing, it's not happening. It's not. Bosses are telling their students, the students, that if they test negative, no matter what the return date to school says, if they're negative, they can come back to work. They don't care. Okay? It's happened. Happened to me. These kids are going to school, or they're going to work. They can't go to school? Screw it. They're negative. But the dates aren't lining up correctly. And I know that you're following the CDC stuff. Okay? The parents that sent their children back to school in January with the understanding that they would be masked and can still have that option. We would never ask them to make a decision that they believe would jeopardize the health of their kids. And we, the parents, are asking the same thing. Those teachers that feel the need to be vaccinated have had the chance to do it. We've heard the last 2 meetings, okay? All of our kids over 16 have had that chance. We've been able to do that for them where there is no shortages right now. There is no reason to keep them masked if everyone who's at a higher risk has been vaccinated. I'm sorry to say this, but the district cannot have it both ways. Either the vaccines work or they don't, okay? So please stand with these 349 parents and vote to allow masks to be optional for the 21-22 school year and the remainder of this year with a voluntary quarantine if contact traced. respectfully submitted by the 349 concerned parents and loved ones of the students in our district that have signed your copies in front of you.
Thank you. Albert Morgan. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Albert Morgan. I live in Germantown, right behind the dog park. So I hear dogs barking all the time. It's awesome. I guess I'm gonna start out with the whole math situation. I have a daughter in first grade at Rockfield, and right now she's learning how to pronounce and read and write. And I think it's really deterring her having the mask on to see her teacher's lips moving, and for her pronouncing words like thirst and first, like you need to see the lips moving in order to pronounce these words correctly, because F and F can really get confusing for a 6-year-old and 7-year-old that's just learning how to communicate. With the mask, it went from no mask to maybe you should wear a mask, maybe, yeah, you have to wear a mask now, to, hey, put 2 masks on. Like, I don't understand why can't whoever's in charge, Fauci or whoever's running him, say, I don't know what to do. It's pretty easy. I don't know a lot. And I'll admit it to everybody. I don't know a lot about a lot of things. So what I do is base it off of personal experience. Who have I come in contact that swears by the mask and say it saved their life? I haven't heard any stories about a mask saving any life from anybody I've ever come in contact with. I forget what his name was before. He compared it to a muzzle. And that's exactly what it is. It's a muzzle preventing us from speaking out against what's happening in this school district and what's happening in our communities and what's happening in our nation right now. They want to silence us. They don't want us to come together and work together. The people in power stay in power by keeping us silent. And I am not going to let that happen anymore. And as far as the CRT goes, in my opinion, it's straightforward. It violates the 14th Amendment. And in short, state and school districts have an obligation to prevent a learning environment that promotes hostility toward a certain race or sex. CRT is just that. It's promoting discrimination against whites. My children should not feel uncomfortable being white and being taught that they are oppressors for simply existing. And instead, I'm offering a solution that a change to the curriculum should be how to deal with racism, how to confront racism when you get it in your face, and how to educate more about what it actually means, because a lot of kids don't even know what it even is. You ask my daughter right now in 7 years old what racism is, she has no idea. No idea. And I just want to focus, working together on this and being united and not divided, and that's going to be our theme tonight. And in conclusion is, we got to stop empowering the media and the government and other people, especially on social media, who are in power. They are working to keep us down so they stay up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lauren Warner? Welcome.
So I just want to
thank the school board and everybody here tonight. I don't want any disrespect. I'm coming here to talk about another topic that was put on the agenda a couple weeks ago in relation to transportation. I attended meetings over a year long with my students when the boundaries were going to be changed, and transportation was a big discussion about why boundaries were going to be changed. I respected the school board, I respected the school district because they gave us an opportunity to understand and to listen and to be educated on why these boundary changes were going to happen. It was extremely difficult. My family, we have 4 children. We moved to this district 3 years ago. It was hard for us to comprehend the fact that my students were going to have to go to a completely new school for 1 year, 2 years, and then go to a middle school. On top of that, we were hit with this global pandemic. There are obviously multiple other things that are going on, but now on top of that, I have to try and explain to my 5th grader going into 6th grade that he has to get up 2+ hours earlier when he goes to middle school. He's going to be on the bus with high schoolers. I have a high schooler, I have a middle schooler, and I have 2 kids in elementary school. There is a big difference between my 4th or 5th grader going into middle school, riding a bus with high schoolers. Not to mention the fact that they are now going to be sitting on a bus for double the time that they are now. At that point in time, when your children are supposed to be awake and thriving and learning, and we want to educate them on all of these very important things that we are discussing, they have to now be faced with waking up 2+ hours earlier for what? To save $250,000. We were told when the boundaries were shifting, when we were going to make the change in transportation, it was going to save cost, it was going to cut cost. I have not received, and I don't know if other parents have, I have not received any literature from anyone regarding this topic. Again, I respected the decision of the school and of the board and of all of the district administrative because we were able to take surveys and participate in meetings. We were able to ask questions, and we were able to understand why you felt it was important to shift the boundary lines. That affected some of our students. Changing the entire transportation schedule is going to affect all of our students. I would like to be given the same respect and to Bob's directive in the beginning when you said you work for our students. You do. You work for our students, you work for the community, you work for the taxpayers, and the students are the ones being affected by this. And I don't understand why we have not been given the opportunity to understand why this change is being made. It was just made. We had no right to talk, discuss, be educated on it. It was just done. I feel that the board made a very negligent decision when they made certain decisions on past things 2 weeks ago, and I feel that this is to be taken just as seriously. All decisions that the school board makes should be taken seriously, and every single parent in this community has a right to understand, educate, and learn about why you are making those decisions, and we should have a voice. So please rethink this entire transportation, okay? $250,000 as taxpayers, knowing what I pay in taxes, I'm sure that we can figure out a way to save $250,000 so we don't have to make this entire shift in our children's learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Price? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Jenny Price, and I am the mother of 2 boys here at MacArthur. I am here to ask you to make masks optional for all students and staff. I get very emotional, I apologize in advance. Effective immediately, and also for the 21-22 school year. Both of my boys have medical excuses on file with the district nurse, excusing them from wearing face coverings. Apparently that means that while they are allowed to breathe fresh air, they must be shoved into the corner of their classroom behind plexiglass to do so. Yes, my children were placed in the far corner of their classrooms away from all of the other students and teacher because they have disabilities preventing them from wearing face coverings. Despite virtually all available data indicating that kids of this age are at nearly zero risk of getting ill or transmitting the disease to adults, they were deemed, and I quote, a threat to the safety of others. My third grader does not understand what's happening to him, so his disability is a blessing in that sense. Let me add that they decided to name the plexiglass that surrounds him Paul. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it made them feel better about discriminating against a child with disabilities, a 9-year-old. They can call it anything they want, but at the end of the day, discrimination is what this is. There it is. There is this thing called an equitable education. How is singling a child out equitable? We spent 3 years with him, starting at 3 years old, in intensive, 40 hours a week, therapy, 3 years old. And in those 3 years, we focused many, many hours on reading people's faces to figure out what emotion they were feeling. That therapy continued once he started school. Now in just a few short months, what he has worked so hard on for the last 6 years, more than half of his life, has been ruined because he can't see the faces to read anyone's emotions. Social emotional skills are being stifled due to masking. My second grader, on the other hand, does know that what the school did to him was wrong. We talk about it. So he decided to wear a mask every day, just so he's not alone. He suffers with anxiety and sensory issues, which, by the way, the CDC has stated that both of those are exemptions to face coverings. Instead of following the CDC guidelines on this issue, which the district has been saying that they have been doing all year in regards to COVID, the school district and staff decided to pick and choose how to handle the situation when it came to my children and their lack of face coverings. My son now suffers from anxiety attacks at school, elevated heart rate, headaches, and teeth grinding, which led to him needing a root canal at 7 years old. 7 years old. I don't know what your thoughts about that are, but that is completely 100% unacceptable to me. My children are being abused by the school district, and you are hiding behind a public health emergency to do so. If teachers are so comfortable and feel safe going unmasked to restaurants, bars, and gatherings with friends, then they are going to be safe with unmasked children in their classrooms. The district nurse stated that 89% of the teachers in the district who wanted the vaccine had gotten their first vaccination as of the April 12th board meeting, meaning that by now anyone who wanted the vaccine would be fully vaccinated. So what is your end game? Will the masks never come off? Everyone in this district deserves freedom of choice. I know that many, if not all of you on the board, have children of your own. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that you know what is best for your children? Do you think that you should be allowed to make decisions for your own children? Now, what makes you think that we don't believe and deserve the same thing? My husband and I have 3 letters behind our names that make us the experts, and those 3 letters spell mom and dad. Yeah. We are the experts on our own children. Me and my husband, no one else, not the board, not Mr. Stouslin, not Mr. Williams. I am also asking that quarantining be stopped immediately. There is no need to quarantine healthy students and deprive them of an education. Virtual learning is not an equitable education. Let parents choose whatever they feel is right for their children. If parents want to continue to mask their children and keep them home if they've been exposed, that's fine. I respect their right to make those decisions for their children. What I do not respect is people not allowing me to choose the same for my children. I'm asking you to allow our community the right to decide what is best for our kids and make masks a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Krista Ewert.
Hello, my name is Krista Ewert. My family lives in Germantown. We have 3 children that attend Germantown Public Schools. One of the main reasons we moved here 4 years ago was for the great school district. Today, I'm here to express my concerns regarding the recent board actions on the topic of critical race theory and its place in our school district. Even more so, I'm here to speak directly on the complete lack of transparency that has been displayed by our schools. Specifically, Superintendent Brett Strausland and Director Brenda O'Brien on this topic. In a letter sent to parents since the last board meeting, Superintendent Strausland stated that CRT is only taught in 2 elective high school AP classes, and that it's not taught in elementary or middle schools or any mandatory classes. While this may be technically true, this is clearly skirting semantic lines. CRT isn't intended to be solely taught directly as a topic. It's intended to be integrated and infused into all lesson plans at all ages through how our teachers are taught to interact with our students, as well as the way topics are presented to them. So while some are asking, where is it taught or when is it taught? That provides a very easy answer. By just addressing it as CRT, you can say it's only been taught in 2 classes. But if you ask the question, how is this being taught to our teachers and how is it being implemented in our children's lesson plans, I suspect the answer will not be quite so clear. I further suspect that this and several other questions of this sort are why Superintendent Strausland and Director O'Brien are looking to avoid further discussion on it and shut it down by just saying it's in 2 AP classes. It's my belief that Superintendent Strausland and Director of Teaching and Learning, Brenda O'Brien, and several other teachers, like Mr. Whitehead, who spoke last week, intend to race shame the board and community while keeping them misinformed on their true intentions and actions, providing them time and money to force this hateful, racist ideology onto the remaining teachers and our students. This couldn't be more evident than from the presentation given by Director O'Brien and teacher Mr. Whitehead. When combined with recent communications several concerned families have had with Superintendent Strausland and Director O'Brien. During these conversations, they were informed families that no CRT-based training has been presented to the teachers. This is an outright lie to the families. Copies of an email Director O'Brien, and it's already been discussed here tonight, have been emailed to each of the board members. For this to be a surprise to you must mean that you're not reading the letters that you're getting from your community. In this email, Director O'Brien explains to the staff that she's been working with Lynetta Davis, who is a consultant with the firm Ubuntu Research and Evaluation, to implement CRT and facilitate staff training. This consulting firm is of grave concern to me. The founder, Monique Liston, describes herself as a chief strategist and joyful militant in her bio on the firm's website. I urge you to take the time to review their website, where they advise evaluation, curriculum development, and program design, along with facilitation and coaching. I would take great issue with the district using taxpayer money to pay a joyful militant or her representatives to coach and consult our administrators and teachers in the development of our school's curriculum. Some of this coaching has already taken place during the March 2021 Teachers in Service, as also has been addressed here tonight. And those lesson plans and study questions that were used during that in-service have been emailed to each of the board members as well. As a parent in the Germantown and a Germantown community member, I am shocked to learn that the administrators believe the solution to racism is more racism. Why isn't there transparency to the parents and the school board in what is being presented to our teachers and children? It also leads me to ask what else is being hidden. At this time, I would request the board rescind the ban on CRT and extend it to theories that incorporate division based on any person's personal traits or characteristics. I caution the board and community members to limit the ban to the simple term critical race theory, as the name can be simply shifted to another flavor of the day acronym while its core teaching remains intact. Please keep Germantown School District unified, not divided.
Thank you. Jean Mary? Welcome.
Yeah, Jean Mary, resident of Germantown. The materials for tonight suggested the need for an equity expert for the district. I will preface my comments by sharing an excerpt by a policy researcher published in Hill Hills College. Critical race theory, formulated in the 1990s, is built on the intellectual framework of identity-based Marxism. Critical race theorists realized that neo-Marxism would be a hard sell. Equity, on the other hand, sounds non-threatening and is easily confused with the American principle of equality. But the distinction is vast and important. Equality, as proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence, 14th and 15th Amendments, Civil Rights and Voting Acts, is explicitly rejected by CRT. In contrast to equality, equity, as defined and promoted by critical race theorists, is little more than reformatted Marxism. An equity-based form of government would mean the end of individual rights and equality under the law, federalism, and freedom of speech. These would be replaced by race-based redistribution of wealth, group-based rights, and active discrimination. Okay, that said, if the district maintains the teachers need to understand what equity means, there is no need to hire an expert. As a former teacher, I know what a teaching pay scale looks like. I am sure it has not changed much in the last several years. It is basically an XY axis with years of experience down the side and advanced education across the top of it. This is an equality-based system. Every teacher has an equal opportunity to advance on the pay scale. So, forgo hiring an equity expert. Stick a pin in the pay scale, and that will become the salary for every single teacher in the district, regardless of years taught or further education. You will then have an equity-based pay system that they will easily understand. I would venture to say that less experienced teachers with no additional coursework will feel no need to better their skill sets with more education, and teachers who have advanced on the pay scale will not be happy. You will have the divisiveness that CRT is intended to foster, and probably a large dose of resentment by a good portion of your faculty. In conclusion, our students do not need to be taught to distrust or hate anyone, to feel guilty about who they are, or to feel that they cannot be proud of this country. Skip the CRT. Spend the time teaching our Constitution and all of the facts about U.S. history, great and ugly. If you do that without bias, they will recognize past mistakes and can move forward doing better. If we teach the unbiased, unvarnished truth about our entire history, students will be able to make informed decisions about themselves and their relationships with others, regardless of race, creed, gender, or any other divisive categories presented by CRT. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Peterson? Welcome.
Good evening. Diane Peterson. I'm a resident of Richfield. I was also a TA, or a teaching assistant, at Alverno College, and one of the first women, I worked very hard like you guys campaign, one of the first of 2 women elected to the Richfield Town Board in 1997. After 150 years, the first women. So I left the meeting quite early last time, and so I listened to the later portion of the teachers and the board put through your website. Tonight I'd like to address your new business item number 7D and teacher contracts and suggestion to have a director of equity. First, let me address Mr. Whitehead's comments at last meeting. He was asked by either the school board or the superintendent to explain how and where CRT is found in the Germantown curriculum. While Mr. Whitehead has the right to speak and was asked to speak, I was surprised with his expression of anger when he, and I paraphrase, wasted his time responding to an incomprehensible board action. As a TA in speech class at Alverno, we taught students to learn and identify who their audience is when speaking. As a board, are you happy with the way Mr. Whitehead spoke to you? Are you as parents happy to know the way this teacher spoke to that board? No. Since when is it wasting a teacher's time to explain to the board and parents what their children are being taught? Everyone here tonight and last week should be upset by his tone, the raising of his voice, and his attitude against the board, and also to the parents who were there. Or maybe some of those were on his side, who's to know? I just added that. In fact, it was an informational report, not a persuasive speech, and in that kind of a speech, you use emotion to help promote the facts. He was just supposed to give the facts as to where it was found. We don't need his emotions. You have mine right now, but we didn't need his. Since I'm against CRT, if I would have said that report, you might have heard me say I was thrilled to find it only in 2 classes, upper grade classes. He didn't say he was concerned with the basic premise of CRT or how divisive it can be, rather than his tone of voice and words said he was angry he had to make that report. Remember, parents are taxpayers. They pay his salary. The parents should be angry. One quick note on equity that your ACE committee is looking at under suggestion to hire a director of equity. My grandchildren live in a suburb of Nashville. One was adopted for Korea as a 10-month-old baby. Attended a school in Tennessee where they hired a diversity equity teacher. After many children came home crying, my grandson as well, at what the teacher said to them and about them, the parents, thank you, got together, went to the school, and they stopped the diversity equity curriculum. Instead, it's time for parents to demand a teacher to be hired to teach life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if it's not already taught here. It may well be. Let me end with a quote from Thomas Sowell. I think a lot of you may have heard of him. Education is not merely neglected in many of our schools today, but it's replaced to a great extent by ideological indoctrination. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Green? Welcome.
I've never been to a school board meeting, but when I heard about the last one, it sounded like so much fun I had to come. But honestly, I'm really kind of shocked and appalled about CRT, that it's even being proposed. I know it to be Marxist, like people have said. Critical race theory makes race the prism through which its proponents analyze all aspects of American life, categorizing individuals into groups of oppressors and victims. It is a philosophy that is infecting everything from politics and education to the workplace and the military. In fact, we've seen the federal government has implemented a federal dairy farmer mortgage forgiveness program they pay 120% of the dairy farmer's mortgage unless you're white. So this poor farmer has grouped with other farmers to hire lawyers and fight it, but how sad is that? Critical race theorists falsely accuse the United States of being a fundamentally racist nation and condemns capitalism, individual rights, and the Constitution. CRT claims that American institutions such as the Constitution, property rights, color blindness, and equal protection under the law are vestiges of white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalist oppression, all of which must be overthrown in the name of anti-racism. Ultimately, critical race theory and anti-racism policies would deepen racial divisions and undermine the very institutions that are essential to addressing poverty and inequality across all racial groups. Policymakers concerned about these issues should reject critical race theory and orient public policy toward rebuilding the institutions of family, work, and education, which have been proven to lift Americans of all racial backgrounds out of poverty. Critical race theory ignores evidence that shows that family structure, educational attainment, and workforce participation are the primary drivers of inequality. According to UCLA law professor Cheryl Harris, the goal of CRT is to replace the system of property rights and equal protection with a system of positive discrimination. If that's not an oxymoron, I don't know what is. Tasked with redistributing power and resources in order to rectify inequities and to achieve real equality. To achieve this goal, she advocates a large-scale wealth and property redistribution. Instead of teaching critical race theory, I propose we teach critical thinking. After a year and a half of lockdowns and virtual learning, most students are behind in their education. Are we going to allow teachers to take precious time out of the school day to teach victimhood? Instead of blaming people of a different race for lack of success, let's help students to understand that with hard work and determination, they can achieve their goals. America is not a racist country. We voted for a black president for 8 years, and now we have a black vice president. Let's stop dividing people and let's embrace the great blessing that we all share in being Americans. A house divided cannot stand. Martin Luther King Jr. would not support CRT. He stated in his I Have a Dream speech, "I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Focusing on victimhood never leads to happiness or success and will destroy our republic. We are asking the Germantown School Board to do the right thing and reject CRT. Our children deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody Graff. Welcome.
Since I like to start by going off script, I thought it was really sweet that those kids came in today, and I know that it was meant so well to applaud them and thank them for being here. But it really breaks my heart that they had to be told, I know it's scary to come up here when we're all in masks. And I hope we really think about what that meant and that we're doing that to our kids every day. So let's all please take a deep breath and reground ourselves in remembering that the voices of this school board and its meetings exist for parents and community members to be involved in shaping our children's educational experience. This is not to be done by outside interests or by only a few. We all matter. We all should be here participating. And thank you to every single person of every side that is here participating. Every single one of our kids and students deserves to feel safe and comfortable at school. Many of our kids don't feel safe or comfortable wearing a mask all day long, 5 days a week. Some families want their kids to wear it. Some students don't feel comfortable for fear of being bullied or verbally attacked. How many of us in this room were bullied as a kid for something about us that was different? Okay. Kids can act out and be intentionally insensitive as part of developing and attempting to deal with their own insecurities. But since when has the response to that behavior been the creation of an equity committee? And an equity committee that wasn't offered to the public for participation. And I would like to be part of that if I would be allowed. This isn't even about masks anymore. Like Jason said, the virus is 1,000 times smaller than the holes in fabric, so they don't even work. And a Petri dish sample would show most of these kids' masks are literally a threat to their health because they're filthy. Plus, the agenda was never to stop the spread, it was to slow the spread. There's a virus out there, we're all gonna get it, and over 99% of us are going to survive it. So for those who say, well, there's only a month of school left, or, well, they're just kids, they're adaptable. No and no. Shame on all of us for allowing this to go on without listening to each individual student as to what makes them feel safe and comfortable at school. Whatever that looks like to each family, they deserve to finish their last month of school in all of eternity feeling comfortable and confident and at their best to learn every day. They are just children, regardless of their age. Their innocence should never be taken advantage of nor taken from them. It's been 14 months of mental anguish and stress on them. We cannot place the burden of fear on our children. It must end now. Masks must become a choice. As I said last time, we have an amazing community here. I saw an awesome picture that Kim posted of all different high school students coming together for a kickball game. And she said, that's what it's all about. Acceptance and genuine respect. I couldn't have loved or agreed with that more. That is what we're after here. This isn't about masks. This isn't about race. This is about community. This is about individuality and healthy parenting. This is about kindness and sticking up for one another. And being pissed off when somebody in the community isn't being treated well or isn't being allowed to be themselves or take care of their family in the way that they see best possible. I can't tell you the number of families that I've heard from that said they've moved here for this school, myself included. Some of our best friends are looking to move here. Maybe you've seen them. They're Black and Asian, and they come to many of our sporting events because they're like an aunt and uncle to my kids. They don't want to live in Milwaukee anymore because they've recently felt a serious lack of community where they live. So why do so many great families choose to send their kids here? Because we value the sense of community, and we want everyone who wants the same. If anyone wants to be part of this community and to look out for their neighbor and stand up for freedom and equality and transparency and just being a good person, please be part of Germantown and this school district. What there's no room for, however, is allowing anything to divide us as a community. What there's no room for is entering this room with passion and not setting it aside to hear someone else's story and pain and needs. What there's no room for is coming here to say, I don't want bullying anymore, and then snickering and jeering and bullying someone who has a different point of view, or telling them they're not allowed to feel sorry for things that are going on with others because the color of their skin doesn't match someone else's. That's literally what happened last time, and it's not okay. In my house, we live by the platinum rule, and that's treating others how they want to be treated. If we as a community can't even apply the golden rule of treating others how we want to be treated, how the heck are we ever going to start treating someone how they want to be treated? How can we ever expect our children to be a better generation if we're not walking the walk? Parents must be allowed to parent. When mom had an issue and needed to stick up for her son, she went to the parents of the student she had an issue with, and she went to the school. And that is how things are going to get resolved. Individual accountability. Allow parents to parent. If they're not willing to step up and do that, they're going to have a real quick awakening when their kid gets expelled for bullying. Allow parents to parent, make masks a choice. Stop categorizing our kids. Celebrate them. Celebrate their individuality. Catch them doing right. You catch them being kind superheroes in elementary school. The wall behind you at the last meeting in Kennedy was filled with lessons, and it said, how to get others to like you. Be respectful, smile, full of simple tips on how to be a stand-up person. Good in, good out. Teach that. Teach positivity, ownership, and confidence. Teach student body and community unity. It's not okay to teach our kids to divide themselves into categories instead of all be on the same playing field while being beautifully different. Stop discriminating against kids who don't want to wear masks, and don't allow discrimination or segregation in our schools via student-on-student, teacher beliefs on students, or divisive curriculum against students. And if you're not willing to stand up and stand for these things, that's okay. Just please step down and let somebody else take your seat. We need a ban on questioning, instruction, or other treatment of a student based on the student's race, and make masks a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Thierman, welcome.
Thank you. My husband and I moved to Germantown 6 years ago with our 2 young children, now 3 kids, for the great schools in the Germantown School District. In talking with many other families in the area, and tonight others mentioned as well, this seems to be a very common theme. So many families have moved here because of the high standards and quality education of this district. I am confident that approving critical race theory to be incorporated into our schools will force families to move to a different school district, and the impact of CRT will destroy our community. During the last school board meeting, I didn't hear from anyone that is in favor of CRT as to what is in the curriculum that is so essential that we need to have it in our schools. But when I did my own research, I found so many reasons why it shouldn't be in our schools. Consider the lawsuit that was filed in Nevada, where a senior high school student was forced to take a sociology of change class in order to graduate. In this critical race theory-based class, students were required to disclose their race, gender, religious, and sexual identities. Then, students who identified as white or male or heterosexual or Christian are labeled with derogatory terms, and they are asked to undo and unlearn their beliefs that stem from oppression. The senior in this lawsuit refused to partake in this class and therefore received a failing grade. This situation wound up in court on grounds of unconstitutional. And long story short, the student's failing grade has been removed. That's just one example of many. In a publication by Christopher Rufo, founder and director of Battlefront, a public policy research center, states many examples of how CRT is unfolding in other districts. In California, first graders were forced to deconstruct their racial and sexual identities and rank themselves according to their power and privilege. First graders. In Springfield, Missouri, a middle school forced teachers to locate themselves on an oppression matrix based on the idea that straight, white, English-speaking Christian males are members of the oppressor class and must atone for their privilege and covert white supremacy. In Philadelphia, fifth graders were forced to celebrate Black communism and simulate a Black Power rally to free 1960s radical Angela Davis from prison, where she had once been held on charges of murder. And in Seattle, the school district told white teachers that they are guilty of spirit murder against Black children and must bankrupt their privilege in acknowledgement of their thieved inheritance. Critical race theory preaches of division, placing students into groups based on certain intrinsic characteristics. You are either privileged or oppressed. No group comes out on top. It is nothing but negativity. We need to instill positive affirmations to our children and in our schools. If a child hears every day that they are a victim, then that is the mentality they will have. Wouldn't you rather all of our children hear every day that they are amazing and intelligent and kind and a leader and destined for great things? Same thing for the white oppressors as identified by CRT. I want my child hearing positivity every day, not being told and taught negativity just because of the color of the skin he was born with. I don't deny that racist incidents may occur in the district. Many parents and students shared personal experiences of harassment at the last board meeting. This was extremely concerning to me, so I reached out and was able to connect with a leader in our school district who explained that Germantown School District has stricter disciplinary standards compared to all surrounding area districts when it comes to topics like harassment. I learned that all incidences reported by a student or parent are investigated. A statement is taken from anyone involved in the incident. Video footage from cameras are reviewed. Witnesses are questioned. It sounds like it's a very thorough process. I also heard from this leader that a large majority of experiences shared during a recent board meeting were being heard for the very first time in a public forum. Why isn't the standard procedure being used and these events being reported when they happen? Perhaps that is a better place to start than critical race theory. I do not see how critical race theory or any similar ideology will benefit our children and our community. It will only create further division. We need to come together. We need to instill in our children and in our schools respect, confidence, integrity, willpower, honesty, accountability, positivity, and individuality. We need to stop this division. Please, I am asking you, our elected representatives to our school board, do not allow critical race theory or any type of this ideology into our schools. We need to be united, not divided. Thank you.
Thank you. Meg Makowski? All right. Cindy Welsh?
Thank you. Thank you for the chance to come here and offer my thoughts of a recent anti-bullying campaign that Germantown High School put together. My daughter is a 9th grader at the high school, and I'd like to say how much I've appreciated the opportunities she's had at the school, between the education she's received, the sports that she's been able to participate in, even if she didn't make all the teams she tried out for, and most recently, all the effort that it's been put into bringing back students in a way that balanced safety of the students and staff with the needs of having in-class learning resume as quickly as possible. I don't pretend to see all the work that has gone into this school year, but I certainly appreciate it, so thank you. What I wanted to touch on today was regarding a recent video that was presented to the entire student body after several weeks ago. It was in response to some significant concerns that have come up around the respect of students at the Germantown High School, and particularly with respect to sexual identity. Having not been aware of the video or its presentation until my daughter mentioned it one day after school, I reached out to the school in hopes of seeing it. I was told that some students had received the video via email through teachers, but if I wanted to see it, I must go to the school. I went to the school, and the school was happy to assist me. I met with the vice principal and watched the video. It was very appropriate, and the anti-bullying messages were good. What I didn't appreciate about the video was these were 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and 16-year-olds in the video with other staff and students, and their parents had no idea that they had been shown, the whole school and staff had been shown this video. So I hope you can tell the concern I wanted to bring to this meeting tonight was that there's always been announcements ahead of time to parents when sensitive topics are being presented to our students, to get parents to have a talk ahead of time with our kids and hopefully get the most benefit from these types of forums. These things can be difficult to talk about, and it is certainly uncharted territory at times that we need to work together as parents and educators to ensure that the right message is offered to students as each family sees fit. And in particular, in this case, helping our kids understand how important this message of eliminating bullying from our schools. So I ask that in the future, the school continue to make parents aware ahead of time so we can all know what is coming and work together on bringing up the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Chad Matson? Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Chad Matson. I have 2 children in the district, one here at MacArthur and one 4-year-old future student. The board passed a motion at the last meeting to make masks optional for summer school, and I can surmise you are prepared to vote the same for the 21-22 school year. This is premature. I have searched the CDC and a multitude of other scientific sources to find any guidance that suggests that this is appropriate, and there isn't any. I did, however, fill this binder with scientific information that supports the continuation of mask usage, especially in schools. I had to spend much of my free time poring over data to condense for you during my busiest time of the year as an educator, because it appears you didn't spend any time on it. To be thought leaders, you must use accurate, vetted data to produce that thought. In the most recent update to the CDC guidelines, there are 5 key prevention strategies that are essential to safe delivery of in-person instruction. Number 1 is the universal and correct use of masks. This is paramount in a time when the American Association of Pediatricians and the Children's Hospital Association reported that childhood cases are up to 22% of all cases from 3% last year. Wisconsin is part of that rise. Again, Wisconsin is part of that rise. According to Dr. Sean O'Leary, Vice Chair of the AAP's Committee on Infectious Diseases, this is partially due to new highly contagious variants and in-person school relaxing mitigation standards. Recommendations by our Wisconsin DHS and subsequently by the Washington Ozaukee County Public Health Department are to wear masks in schools and to quarantine when close contact occurs. Note we had a positive case in the school district last week. Imagine if that person had chosen not to wear masks. Despite a lot of popular opinion, children do spread it, and that could have caused an outbreak within our community. Now, it was stated at the last meeting that we are doing well, and why not test it out over the summer? In this scenario, the test subjects are our children, and a test failure would be wide community spread, severe illness, and possible deaths. Those are just the known outcomes. Now, what we don't know is what the future holds for our children who are infected by COVID-19, and neither do the experts yet. But think of varicella zoster, or chickenpox. Parents used to actively infect their children at chickenpox parties because it appeared relatively harmless to children, but was quite dangerous to adults. Decades later, we found that an immune response could reactivate the virus, manifesting in painful sores that could lead to other more extreme and permanent outcomes. Imagine the ramifications if this virus that attacks the respiratory system could evoke a similar response. I know it's not an easy decision, but why does fall need to be decided now? We have updated vaccine schedules that show all students may be eligible for vaccines close to the start of the school year, or next school year. But as of now, 0% of children under 16 have had access to vaccinations. 0%. That means 100% of those children. That means 100% of those children are vulnerable to those who choose not to wear masks and expose them in closed settings.
Use your own child as the test dummy, not mine.
Okay. If we mitigate for just a bit longer, once all school-age kids can be vaccinated, the science will support a removal of the mask requirement. I have heard citizens and board members say it should be an option to wear masks. But I remind all of you that those who choose to not wear masks, I did not speak up when you were speaking.
The last board meeting they did, I think already know it's a free-for-all.
It is not a free-for-all. I respected your time. Please respect mine. So I've heard citizens and board members say that it should be an option. But I remind all of you who choose to not wear masks, you will spread it to those who do according to every single evidence-based study. I will remind the people who said that these masks don't stop the spread of viruses. These masks stop droplets. This is an aerosolized droplet spread, and that virus is encapsulated in droplets. If it's not encapsulated in droplets, you can't spread it. Now, lack of a safe place to learn means that our children will be denied their blessings of liberty by this board. If you don't trust the science, you shouldn't be a member of a board of education. Please don't guess. Use data. when it comes to our children's safety. I actually printed this out for you. Would you like to review the scientific data? No? Okay.
If you could, please leave it with Brenda O'Brien.
Sure.
That way the board can reference it. Thank you. Cindy Schrader.
Good evening. I am a Germantown High School graduate, 1978, longtime Germantown resident, and a very concerned citizen who attended the meeting on April 26. I came to the meeting with my mother and my aunt, who both live in Germantown. I thought the agenda was to discuss a CRT curriculum in our schools, but I was horrified as the night went on. I must say the entire night was pretty intimidating for a lot of us. All we heard was student after student, some teachers read the typical race-baiting garbage. No one discussed the curriculum. The propaganda and whining about race just went on and on. One woman actually got up and called us racist, and I am offended by this. I grew up here. I am still here. We are not a racist community. We are a welcoming community. I was at the meeting for an hour and a half and never had an opportunity to ask my question. And if you actually do your homework regarding CRT, it is a Marxist teaching which attempts to promote further division in communities. Once it is accepted, it is packaged as equity. Kids get radicalized. Section 1 of the 14th Amendment of our Constitution states that we all, as individuals, have equal protection under the law. Equity, which CRT teaching encompasses, states that each group receives the same outcomes as every other group. This is racist, plain and simple. This is Karl Marx teaching, and this has no business in our schools in Germantown. A teacher's job is to educate our children in math, science, reading, writing, but not equity. Also, there is discussion surrounding an equity officer. I ask why. Thomas Sowell, the great economist, quote, no one equity program has ever lifted anyone out of poverty. Lastly, Ms. Brenda O'Brien, the Director of Teaching and Learning, has recently advised her teachers to read the book Me and White Supremacy and examine their own white privilege. Again, this is racist. This book is written without any facts, it is not written in good faith, and there is no evidence to support the writings in this book. I cannot believe that a Director of Teaching and Learning would introduce such racism here. We are not judged by the color of our skin, but the content of our character. Thank you.
Thank you. Alyssa Apollo? Welcome.
Hello. I spoke at the school board meeting 2 weeks ago and voiced my opposition for critical race theory at that time. I am disappointed to see how some of you have backpedaled on your decision when in the spring you were running for election, and I specifically asked this question and I was told that CRT had no place in our schools. So were you telling me what I wanted to hear, or were you willing to hold true to your word? It's also very concerning that what Sarah Larson pointed out at the last meeting was that when the school administrators were asked if it was in the schools, they said they didn't know. Now you tell us it's been in the schools for the past 10 years in the AP classes. So which is it? You do not have your finger on the pulse of what is happening in our classrooms. You need to start knowing what your teachers are doing and what is being taught day in and day out. Our public schools, which receive funding for public dollars, do not exist to groom our students into activists for particular causes, shame children for their immutable traits, or deny them their childhood. It is immoral to reduce them to their racial and gender categories and to teach them to do the same to others. We should not be promoting our schools to conduct educational programs and pedagogy that stereotype, scapegoat, or demean students on the basis of race. We should be focused on academic excellence, not leftist politics. I bring up academic excellence because the U.S. News and World Report just released a 2021 rankings. Germantown ranked number 22 for the state, which is 2 points lower than we were the year before. I was very disappointed to see that Germantown students had only a 51% math proficiency and a 57% reading proficiency. Meanwhile, schools in our surrounding areas of Whitefish Bay, Cedarburg, Grafton, Mequon, both Brookfield schools and New Berlin all had higher rankings, scoring 3 to 14% higher in math proficiency and 6 to 14% higher in reading proficiency. This is embarrassing. Brenda O'Brien, are you proud of these numbers? Because I am not. And I graduated from Germantown in 2005. This is disappointing. We need to stop wasting our precious class time on these divisive and damaging agendas and focus our efforts on concrete, foundational education. As for the ACE Committee's recommendation for a director of equity, this will be a complete waste of money and time. Having an expert in this field will serve no purpose to our student body, as there is no agreed upon expert criteria. It's only people who like CRT who designate these people as experts in the first place. Our school should not be spending money on these experts when you can't even put together a decent busing plan because of budgets. I recognize that some of the students in our schools have experienced some very sad, disgusting, and disturbing behavior at the hands of their peers. I saw the Burger King video. It was abhorrent. I fully acknowledge that what those students chose to do was wrong, and no one deserves to be treated that way. But we cannot think that implementing CRT is going to fix all of these problems, because it will not. We need to work together, find solutions, and have transparent rules and punishment when students engage in this degrading behavior. Again, I ask you to continue to educate yourselves on this topic, that you please review material from both sides, as I have emailed you twice resources from websites, articles, YouTube videos, and podcasts that all speak to this content. And for anyone here, I have handouts. It has over 50 resources that you can look up and educate yourself. I have listened and read to every single one. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Heffley? Welcome.
Thank you for the time, per usual. Kind of tough to me to follow any of the stuff that was said earlier, as you know, where my interests lie. So I won't be talking about transportation, CRT, or any of those things. You know, I name myself the budget guy, I guess. And my concern, I hear a lot of, you know, passionate people out here, and they all want the same thing. We all want the same thing, to be the best school district we can be. You know, however that shakes out, however we do it. So on the idea of curriculum, there was brought up back in February that we want to start a virtual academy, and this was in response to losing 65 kids due to COVID who found a virtual option elsewhere, okay? So we felt that we should look into that option, and I agree with it as long as we're going to hold the same academic standards that this school has had, albeit going down according to the last speaker. We still are pretty darn high in the state. The latest rankings I saw, there's a couple of them out there, niche.com. A couple of years ago, we were 16 out of 371 districts, number 16 out of 371 school districts in the state. I think that's high. I know there's others that are higher near us, but that's still pretty high, okay? So when I see on the agenda that we were going to discuss this and ask for a grant from the state to have us look into CRT and have it be available not this following year, but the year after, and I think that's a great idea. Let's get the grant, let's research it, let's talk to other people who run one, and let's see how it goes, and if it makes sense, we'll do it. I don't think the 65 kids that left are coming back. I really don't. If they're coming back, they're not coming back virtual. They're coming back because all the teachers are vaccinated and the parents feel comfortable, okay? We had trouble with delivery of virtual when we got caught by the virus. I get that. Now we know better about what we need to do, and I think we're going to have less virtual kids, not more. That's just my opinion. So Rather than waiting for a grant, we appear to be charging ahead into setting up a virtual academy next school year, not the one after to study it, not waiting for a grant, but to actually do it. And then I brought it up before in February or March. We're looking to do it with a school district that is way below ours from proficiency, way below, okay? Far, far below. So I don't know why we would do that. Thankfully, disclaimer, okay, maybe not thankfully, both my kids went through the entire school district. My youngest one graduated during COVID, okay? He was a senior. So I don't have a kid in the district, but I still have a passion for the community. And I think, and I know you're discussing it later, I think this is a bad idea, my opinion, because I would never want my kids to experience a level of proficiency, professionalism, education lower than what we currently provide, and that's what we'd be doing if we offer an option from a school district that's nowhere near the level that we are at. I think that's a very foolish idea. And then, and I might be wrong, and I know there's going to be a report about it, and you know what, if I'm wrong, I will come back to this board and apologize and stand corrected, because that's what I do, okay? We would be paying this school district virtual $4,700 to send one of our kids there to be taught by their teachers, who, by the way, as a school district, are nowhere near us. I'm not going to mention their ranking. You can look it up. It's on the board agenda, board packet. So I have no idea why we do that. My question is, did we survey all the parents of the district? And we're going to be starting to survey parents about a lot of things, right? Ask them what they want. Ask them, do we want this? And if we do it, and if we get a grant to do it, and if it's sponsored by this community, these administrators, and they say we're running it, then I'll be for it. Other than that, I am not in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Yankee?
Good evening. I'm Matt Yankee, parent of 3 kids in the school district, with a 4 starting school in a little over a year. I'm here as a voice for much of the MacArthur family, and I wanted to read a statement on the negative effects that your vote on new busing and the bell schedules will have, in particular on the MacArthur students, families, and staff. I believe that this issue should have been tabled last board meeting due to the magnitude of much more pressing issues that were being discussed. I understand that many are upset about the early start and pickup times for both the high school and middle school, which I also agree with and was addressed a little earlier. But I can say at least all the high schoolers and middle schoolers are in the same boat, or should maybe say the same bus at this point. Whereas MacArthur is being put at a disadvantage for many reasons, compared to their peers not only in the district, but those in the surrounding areas as a whole. We have an overwhelming deficit, and the biggest factor outside the mismanagement of funds over the last 5+ years is our declining enrollment. So the way to try and fix this is to make decisions that hurt our children and not encourage community growth. We love to compare ourselves to other school districts, as we just were hearing a little bit here, and boast about how great Germantown is in relation to the other districts in the area. Well, how about these comparisons? Out of over 30 districts throughout the Wow County, so Waukesha, Washington, and Ozaukee, there's only one school district that has staggered elementary school start and end times. Out of over 80 elementary schools throughout all these districts, MacArthur Elementary would be the only one that starts after 9 a.m. and ends after 4 p.m. Now, are those things something to boast about and to draw new families into this district? There are currently 5 new subdivisions in Germantown that have houses going up in them. As of current elementary lines, each of those subdivisions fall in the MacArthur zone. Do you think those families or prospective buyers find that as a pro to send their kids to Germantown public schools? Parents are not able to start work until after 9 a.m., or some students will be getting home just before 5 p.m. every day, even though they all live within 5 minutes of the school. Of course, opposition has not been risen by those families at County Line who get to move up their school days for what many find beneficial both for the kids and parents. Amy Bell and Rockfield, everything pretty much stays status quo. But then there's MacArthur, which happens to be the only Title I elementary school in the district. So that's meaning that over 40% of the students are on a free or reduced breakfast and lunch program. those students are now being put at an even greater disadvantage than their peers. Some of those students may not be receiving a meal, or a good meal for that matter, from lunchtime the previous school day until breakfast at almost 9 a.m. the next morning. The district lays out on its website an explanation of the Title I program with a quote from the Wisconsin Department of Instruction. It reads, Title I is a federal program that provides funds to school districts and schools with high numbers or high percentages of children who are disadvantaged to support a variety of services. Its overall purpose is to ensure that all children have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high-quality education and reach at a minimum proficiency in challenging state academic achievement standards and assessments. That does not sound like our school district is supporting this program for that overall purpose. As a matter of fact, it seems as if they're doing quite the opposite. Each parent, student, and teacher has to sign this Title I compact. Maybe it's time that the school board also signs it. I find it all quite alarming considering the recent equity issues brought to light in this district and community. Now, not only are Title I students, families, and staff affected at MacArthur, but all MAC families are. Kids being in Kids Club in the morning for over 3 hours before school starts. The extra costs associated with the before care and it being passed along strictly to MacArthur families. My son Nolan, who spoke earlier in the meeting as one of the MAC leaders, is going into 5th grade. He has a ton of extracurricular activities, just like most kids in this district. He has basketball practices in Mequon starting at 4:30, tackle football here in Germantown that we are arriving at before 5 p.m. My 2nd grader, Elena, has piano on one of the nights at 4:30, and soccer in Cedarburg on other nights also by 4:30. There are many MacArthur kids now that definitely will not be able to ride the bus, won't have time to grab a snack, or finish a little homework before these activities start, but their peers will. This applies to those peers in Germantown and the surrounding communities. Don't forget that my son will also start learning 2 hours earlier when going from MacArthur to KMS the following year. I know that the staff at MacArthur voiced these concerns, along with the difficulty of young children to stay focused and actively learn the later it gets into the day. And now they are being asked to do so even longer. It is embarrassing that when discussing options at the March 23rd meeting, not a single committee member, nor Mrs. Altendorf, nor Mr. Stousland brought up a single one of these concerns. It was all about the money. Now, I'm sure you don't like to just hear complaints, so here's what I would do to fix this money issue, and it's not just threatening to cut staff, which is one of our biggest assets in this district. Start maybe by not just automatically extending our contract with Right Way. Year after year, contract after contract. I understand that Right Way and Germantown School District have a long history of essentially growing up together, but why are we not at least looking into different transportation vendors? Germantown decided to extend the current contract that we had going through the 21-22 school year last September, mind you, in the middle of a pandemic and during the whole back-to-school debacle. This, once again, was done without a single look into what competitors could offer or a single discussion by the committee or board. We now have a contract with Right Way through the 24-25 school year. On the other hand, we seem to get multiple Chromebook and iPad financing bids to compare what is offered in overall costs. I actually think I counted 8 bids on those. Why do we do something like that for a couple $100,000 expenditure, but not for a $1.5 million plus expense like busing? I asked these questions through an email of our board members, and I got a response solely stating to compare our transportation costs to other school districts. Well, it's impossible to compare to other districts when what is being offered to our students, especially MacArthur students, is a far inferior product compared to what the surrounding communities give. I can, however, compare Germantown School Board and our Transportation Committee's process to other school districts. West Bend just selected their new busing for the next 2 years. Their process included a request for proposal, which was sent to 9 vendors, of which 4 responded. They formed a committee of district staff and parents that conducted 3 site visits for each of these vendors. They came up with a mathematical evaluation sheet that assigned ratings in 3 categories: safety and equipment, references and expertise, and cost. They then picked the winning bid based on that. We, on the other hand, in Germantown, looked at one thing: cost, not the children. Oh, and by the way, that cost was from 1 vendor, 1. And with all that said, the MacArthur students, families, and staff all suffer due to a lack of foresight, laziness, or just downright ignorance. The district preaches a whole child approach, but apparently that doesn't apply to all the children in our schools. But it looks good from a 10,000-foot view, as our superintendent stated in the March 23rd committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Betcher?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Betcher. I spoke last board meeting, my first board meeting. It was quite an adventure. I was asked to read a letter from a community member that was written anonymously. They didn't have the guts to stand up in front of everybody and read that, but they wanted a voice. So as a nurse, I'm a voice for people. I'm gonna start out a little bit with masks. So once upon a time on the OSHA website, before it was erased because it didn't meet the mandates and the storyline, this surgical mask here, this humble little surgical mask, was designed to work in effect like a vacuum cleaner bag, a one-way valve, kind of in a way of sorts, designed to work in a sterile environment. Once it is saturated in about 20 to 30 minutes with warm breath, it then becomes more detrimental to the wearer breathing in particles if you're in a contaminated environment. So it doesn't really protect the person breathing in because, again, it acts as a vacuum cleaner, one-way valve type of situation. The N95 mask, a little bit better filtration, designed for a contaminated environment. So construction workers, you know, dusty projects, you'll wear these. You'll also notice that those fibers still get in your nose. They still go around the mask. This mask does nothing to protect the people surrounding the wearer because it essentially offers no filtration when they breathe out. So in order to truly filter, hopefully, this minute particle from the virus, you would effectively have to wear both of these. Nobody's going to do that. My kids already think that school is a torture chamber, and then we go ahead, he literally does, because he has some issues with ADD and ADHD, and then we go ahead and we force him to wear a mask. And the fibers are even more porous in these guys. Not to mention the fact that most people will wear them over and over, multiple days in a row. They don't properly wash them or disinfect them. They often don't dry before the next wearing. Thereby, they develop mildew and mold. And people then inhale those and worsen pulmonary conditions. So with that being said, I'm going to also jump into a little bit more from the last board meeting on the hot topic of critical race theory. So my son came with me last time, and he made a couple of observations. Now, he's an 11-year-old boy. He made a couple of observations. He said, "Wow, Mom, they laughed at you when you stood up there and you talked." He said, "That's not very respectful when they're looking for respect." That's an 11-year-old boy. He, after hearing about the story of, I noticed that Meg is gone, unfortunately. After he heard about Amari's story, he called the kid out on the bus the next day. He said, "Dude, that was wrong. It was not okay." My middle boy has a crush on Meg's little girl, and I think it's the cutest thing because his brother will heckle him like brothers do. His cheeks turn pink, his ears turn pink, and he gets all embarrassed because he's got that little boy crush. I think that's adorable. I was laughed at because I said I grew up colorblind. I grew up in Milwaukee. One of my fondest memories of my mother growing up was getting to go to the bank and getting to see Rita, the tall, pretty one, this statuesque black lady. She was so sweet to us. I don't teach my children bad things, and I don't think most of us teach our children bad things. And at one point in my life, I signed a blank check up to and including my life, if it was asked of me, to defend everybody's right to free speech. It doesn't mean freedom from consequences, but free speech. Everybody should have their voice. And the mom that's sitting up here this time, she talked about educating. We can't hold people accountable if we don't educate them. I 100% agree with that. I celebrate other cultures with my kids. I find it fascinating to learn about them, and I think everybody should find it fascinating to learn about other cultures, because I find people fascinating. I find their traditions fascinating. At one point in my life, I have a very German heritage. At one point in my life, I felt like I should be ashamed of my heritage because of what the Nazis did. And then I realized how silly that was, because it wasn't me. I didn't do that. Why can't I be proud of my heritage? The way that every student of color should be. They have bravely stood up here and shared their stories, and I think that's fabulous. But I don't think that critical race theory is the way to go, because we look at it being detrimental to one culture in particular. It's always the oppressor. It's the good versus the bad. That's not what it should be. We should learn about other cultures. We should learn about other ethnicities and traditions, but it should be equally. It should not be to the detriment of one or two. We should celebrate people. We should absolutely recognize the differences. But we cannot continue with this situation of bad, bad. I've seen the emails about the book. Brenda, you were real popular tonight with your book. Sorry, but I can't say that I agree with that either. Because when I look at white privilege, I didn't grow up with white privilege. My mom was a single mother. Most of it was on minimum wage. She didn't have a college education. She worked hard to get where she was. And the things that I have today, I have worked hard to get. I have earned every single thing. It has not been white privilege. And my boys are learning that they are going to earn things. They are not just being handed things. One of the moms stood up last time and she talked about moving to Germantown for opportunity. She wanted her kids to have a better opportunity. And I think that is the best thing in the world to give your kids is opportunity. But people need to understand the difference between opportunity versus outcomes. They are not the same. You can have equal opportunity, but you don't have to have equal outcomes. Because not everybody is going to have an equal outcome. There are students that are going to excel at certain things. There are students that are not going to excel at certain things. That is because we are different. Everybody has different abilities, but everybody should have equal opportunity. So for these school districts that are going and removing AP courses, that's not equal opportunity for all students. That is actually detrimental to all students, because it's not all white students that are in those classes. It is students of other races. So while I haven't seen Germantown go to that extent, I don't want to see Germantown go to that extent. We purposely chose public school so that my children would have more opportunity versus a private school. And I respect those parents that want those opportunities for their kids. But people need to understand that equal opportunity does not mean equal outcome. Our history is not there for us to erase it. And our cancel culture that we have nowadays, our history is there to learn from it. If you don't like it, great. That is awesome. Learn from it so you don't repeat it. Learn from it so you don't repeat it. Should we learn about Marxism? Yep, we should. Why? Because then we won't repeat it. Our history is there for us to learn from our mistakes. That is how children learn growing up. They make mistakes. As a parent, you want to protect them, but you know that sometimes you have to let them fall so that they can learn from those mistakes. So let's learn from our mistakes. Let's teach things equally. Other cultures teach it equally, transparently. Educate. I'm on board with educate. And finally, in terms of the buses, all I have to say is, are you guys really crazy enough to put middle schoolers on with high schoolers? That's a recipe for trouble. It is just a recipe for trouble. My kid has already heard things from kids that have older siblings that he's repeated that have appalled me. Don't do that to the kids. Don't make them sit on the bus for that long. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last person that signed up to speak. Is there anyone else that wants to speak this evening? Welcome. State your name for the record, please.
My name is Kim Grant, but Meg said she had signed up, but she had to go, so she wanted me to read this email that was sent.
Okay.
And then I had,
Yep, I called Meg earlier. Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Thank you.
I had a whole headache, but okay. This is a letter. I don't know who wrote it. I'm just going to read it for her. Good evening, members of the school board. Thank you for listening to all the statements at the April 26th board meeting and for rescinding the ban on the critical race theory. I feel that it was all in a step in the right direction. But tonight I would like to address how conversations between staff and students are handled after students speak at board meetings. Last week, one of my daughters involved in an incident said that she spoke about at the last meeting were talked to by a teacher that was present during the incident. He told her he heard what she said and began talking about the incident. This was done in a private setting, but it made my daughter extremely uncomfortable. I made a formal complaint and a meeting was set up with the teacher and administration. I do not feel that the meeting was productive. The teacher involved sat there staring at my daughter the entire meeting and did not say much. He did not apologize to my daughter after being made aware of the discomfort he had caused her, and all he said was he took her in a private room to talk about it. I explained to him with the subject so sensitive in nature, it was very inappropriate to talk to her about the incident without a parent being present. I explained how much trauma the entire incident had caused my daughter, and I talked about how moving her away from students using racially insensitive remarks so she wouldn't hear anything they said was not right, was not the right approach to solving the problem. Not one time did he apologize to my daughter. We were given sports analogies by administration on why the band incident was handled the way it was. And once again, I had to explain that it happened that day and why it did not apply. Neither staff member at the meeting even acknowledged what I said about the teacher being inappropriate by seeking to speak to my daughter about what they heard her say at the board meeting. They kept focusing on the incident that happened, saying things like, but nothing else happened after that day, right? The reason I was there was because of my daughter was uncomfortable with what the teacher did after the board meeting. It gave the impression that it was okay for staff to address what students are saying in a public forum, even if the topics are sensitive in nature and the student referenced that specific teacher in their comments. We felt brushed aside and left the meeting feeling more hurt than before we walked in. What happened was very discouraging because if students know that they will be asked about things or what they've said, they will no longer want to speak out about what is happening. This is something we need to fix. We were offered to let our daughter drop from the class, which we have decided to do, but it just doesn't fix the overall problem. How do we fix this? And thank you for listening. So now that was the one from Meg, but I'm sorry. I've sat here and it's taken every bit of church that I went to yesterday to keep me from reacting disrespectfully or with disrespect as other people have had comments when someone of an opposing view spoke. So I'm going to ask respectfully that everybody just listen, because unless I'm missing something, the board voted to rescind the ban on critical race theory, but I never heard the board say that that was the only thing that was going to be taught. I believe I left with the impression that we were going to explore racial sensitivity classes and racial sensitivity and diverse training and classes for all races. I'm really getting and tired as an African American woman thinking that the black people are the only people got problems. Asians have problems. Hispanics have problems. White people got problems. Everybody has problems. But everybody needs education. There's no way you're going to know how offensive it is for a black person, for a white person to only quote Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, but you never say anything about his Other America speech. If you listen to that, Martin Luther King stands there and specifically describes that there are two Americas. Listen to it. Look it up. YouTube. Education. Some of the stuff I've heard tonight is the perfect reason I said that we have to explore a curriculum that expands and that teaches respect for all races. I've heard all these complaints, but I haven't heard one solution. I've heard everybody give what this shouldn't be, and it's Marxist. I don't give a doggone about the critical race theory. I don't care if you throw it out tomorrow, but what will you replace it with? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness didn't happen for my great-great-grandparents. It did not. Hold up, I said respect, because I didn't interrupt you. I sat there and listened to everybody. I don't care how it pierced my heart. I don't care how it hurt me that I can listen to immigrants. I cannot say anything about your history because I wasn't there. I don't know what your ancestors went through. I don't know what the people of your religion went through. I can only tell you what my grandmama told me. I can only tell you what I experienced as a child in the South. I can only tell you the threats on my son's life after he spoke at this last board meeting. That's what I can tell you. I can tell you I watched my son crawl up in the bed wondering why, just because I spoke out, why do I get the threat, don't show up at school tomorrow? That's what I can tell you. I want to know what y'all replacing it with. How many people have looked at other school districts that incorporate cultural diversity and training in their curriculum, cultural sensitivity in their curriculum? How many people have actually looked and see other school districts that make it work? No, we cannot have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not all the time. It just doesn't happen. It is education, and it starts with you. If you have a kindergartner that comes to school cussing, where did they learn it from? Then it's up to the school to let them know that's not accepted here. So if you have a racial student that's left up to TikTok, Facebook, and all this other social media teaching them what's acceptable, if you leave that up to them, who's redirecting them and telling them what's acceptable and what's not? So instead of banning everything, why can't you work together? I said it in the last meeting. We cannot be so far to the left and so far to the right that nobody's willing to meet in the middle. I'm willing to meet in the middle. I'm not a victim, even though I was referred to as that little nigger. I'm not scared to say it, but I'm not a victim. I raised my son not to be a victim, although he has been racially profiled, although he has been the target of a lot of racial. That's just make it stronger, baby. Get it together. I got you. Your sisters got you. Your family has you. Your church has you. When am I going to say your community has you? Because nobody else I can't say that. I'm going to say this. I'm the one that has a GPS on my truck. Only because when he said he wants to go to his friend's house, I need to look and see what that address is. Nobody else has a camera on their rearview mirror. Just in case he gets pulled over, we got double protection. That's the life I live. That's the life I live. Those are the steps I have to take, but without education. Do you think I just tell my son, or I do these things just arbitrarily? No, I do not. I tell him this is the reason why. Because your cousin was shot in the back by the police, standing still. Stories for days. So no, I don't know who threatened my son. I don't know who sent him those emails. It could have been a student in Germantown. It could have been one of you parents. I have absolutely no idea. Those are the fears that I live with. Although, after my initial anger, I said, you know what? It was on the news. I can't say it was from Germantown. I can't say it was a student. I could just say it was somebody that was ignorant. But to have an African-American son and somebody threaten your son and you don't know who it is, do you know what kind of life that lives? I'm still going to stand on the fact that we have to find a way to incorporate cultural sensitivity for all cultures. I even say if you're going to ban the N-word, you better find every derogatory term that will be culturally offensive to all races. It's not just about me being black. I get it. Black lives matter. Yes, they do. White lives matter. Everybody lives matter. That's fine. Jesus died for all of us. Thank you, Jesus. But what I'm saying is that if we are going to be so far to where, and I don't want no sob stories. I don't want nobody patting me on the back. I don't want you to feel sorry for me, shaking my hand. Don't do none of that. Just do better. Just do better. Educate yourself. Look at other curriculums, because I promise you, the next meeting I have with someone at the school board, I have a whole curriculum of at least 5 school districts that incorporate cultural sensitivity and have a cultural diverse model. Now let's look at this, and will it work for our school? Will it work for our students? Because I just can't. I can't. I don't want to be looked at as a victim. The reason why I posted that kickball picture was because I said, this is what my son and I fight for. Nobody at that kickball game had any disrespect. We all enjoyed ourselves, but this was after my son's life was threatened because of him speaking up at the previous board meeting. So we're going to state the facts. Let's state the facts. I would definitely encourage you, since we all want to be on Martin Luther King's bandwagon, listen to the other American. Listen to his letter from the Birmingham jail. He did promote nonviolence, but I promise you, that man spoke the truth. And all of it wasn't that one dream that he had. So we got to stop dreaming, wake up, and start living. That's what we have to do. And I'm saying this as an African-American woman. I don't care if you agree with me or you don't. I'm used to it. I'm used to the looks. I'm used to all of that. I grew up in the backwoods of Arkansas. That don't bother me at all. But what bothers me is the life and the world my son is going to live in. His children and his grandchildren. If God don't come back before then. Sorry, I'm religious. Y'all thank God I was church. I really just want to find that we stop focusing on critical race theory don't belong here. It belongs here, it don't belong here. Well, if you ask some of my ancestors, U.S. history is a little slave. If you look at it, it might not be popular with it, but it's a little slave. When we look at how this country was founded, it could be a little slave. So incorporate everything and educate yourself properly, then we could probably be able to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But as long as we stay in ignorant bliss and try to act like color don't matter, then why is it on the job application? Why you gotta check that little box? Because guess what I check? Other. Because the way you look at me, as much as I'm mixed up with, I ain't all black. So you don't know what I am. Race does matter. It does. I have several friends that work in human resources. So I know what they're required of African American, Asian. I know what you have to do, and I know that some of them they'll look at, and they're just not going to hire because we don't have enough black people here. So yes, white people get discriminated against sometimes because of affirmative action. Y'all want to speak the truth? Let's speak the truth. Yes. It doesn't matter. But until we educate our children, until you put something in your curriculum, until you learn to celebrate the heritage and the hard work and everything of every culture that comes here, we're still doing a disservice to our children. I'm standing not for color, I'm standing for education, period. And that's the part that I have to say. Whether it's popular or not, I'm okay with that. But unless we discuss it, unless you look at all areas, it doesn't have to be the critical race theory. I really thought that's what the ending of rescinding it was, that you were going to look into other options. You just wasn't putting a whole blanket over it, and they were going to look at it and pull out this and pull out that. Like, I come here today, and it seemed like it was doomsday that y'all said y'all were throwing it at the kindergarten. I didn't get that, and if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me from the last board meeting. I thought that you all were going to look at it and take an educated look, and we were also going to look at other diversity and sensitivity classes and courses and history that should be taught at a certain level. So when are we going to have weeks that we celebrate every culture? African American culture, Hispanic culture, German culture, all of them. When are we going to take time that we celebrate everybody's history? I took time to listen to y'all. Y'all take time to listen to me. I'm from a good Baptist church. We didn't get out of church like 3 hours later. I try to lighten it up because I speak loudly, and it's not because I'm aggressive. It's because I grew up on the farm and I had to yell over the tractor to tell Daddy that Mama had finished lunch and it was time for him to come in and eat. That's why I have a loud voice. It's just my nature. But I want to use my loud voice to educate our children because we're missing the point. So yes, that, and finally, on the whole debate about the mask, if I want to wear a mask, leave me alone. I'm going to put my mask on. If I'm going to have that, put his mask on, he's going to put his on. Because all of us suffer with COVID, and then a little 3-year-old grandson, and my daughter just spent an hour and a half at Children's with my other grandchild. So yes, they can. Don't minimize my experience and what my family is going through and what they have gone through, and I won't minimize your choice not to. But what I would ask is respect me if I ask you to, over there, because I got pre-existing health conditions. So since having COVID, there's an enlarged heart, irregular heartbeat, and my epileptic seizures have started back. So yes, I have long-lasting effects after it. It's not an excuse, it is my choice. But don't minimize my choice to separate myself, because I don't never, ever, ever want to experience that again. Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Please state your name.
I'll be brief. My name is Melanie Smythe. I'm a resident of Germantown, and it seems like the board has a communication issue. I've been to a couple of meetings, and I've also watched the videos, and it just seems like the conversations are definitely one way. We've heard that theme here tonight in all sorts of different kinds of conversations. And with the new groupings of people in your various positions, I'm asking you to reconsider, A, putting actual phone numbers where people can reach you on the board website, because it just goes to one person who never is there and doesn't pick up the phone. It's the same phone number for all you guys. It's not an actual phone number, and it's very difficult to reach you. I was able to reach 2 people, mostly because they actually got back to me, and so I was able to ask them for a phone number so we could discuss things. I also think you should have more dialogue some lady said there's a problem with board meetings and the structure, but there needs to be more dialogue in these matters. And this lady who was just speaking was fabulous. I thought she was great at the last meeting as well. You know, there's a lot of frustration here, and I think half of the issues would go away if you just had actual conversations with the parents about these things. Now, after the last meeting, I did take the time to request the curriculum. And I have a copy of it here, and I went through it, and it does have genderism, feminism, criticism, and all these different kinds of things in it. Socialism, Marxism, deconstructionist criticism, which is a basis also of critical racist theory. And what I thought was interesting is that it's in the class of critical thinking, so okay, I thought that might be good. But when you go through it, the way it's written, it is not even-handed in how it describes the different theories. So I would say that this, as a curriculum, has some flaws. The other thing that it does is it seems to be incredibly repetitious about applying genderist theories to books. Like, I'm not even going to go through this right now, it's just so I'm not going to take everyone's time. But I don't think it's even-handed. I did ask for the lesson plan, but was told by Brenda O'Brien that lesson plans aren't collected. So if lesson plans aren't collected, how do you actually know what's being taught? I mean, you can actually print this, give it to someone, but if they're not teaching that, how do you know what's actually being taught in the school classrooms? So I think that's kind of a red flag. I also asked for the reading lists and was told that the individual teachers do that, and it just kind of was shuffled away. This is an email from Brenda today. I'm not for critical race theory. I've learned about it. I've educated myself about it. I appreciate your comments. I think you're right. Whatever it is, something needs to happen. But I think a lot of it starts with better communication with the board and the parents. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, we are well past the initial hour. We're into 2 hours of community comments here, so I will move on with the meeting. Moving on, let's see, item 6, approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the April 26, 2021 Board of Education and April 26, 2021 closed session minutes.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. All right, item 7, new business. Item A, discussion and updates with possible action regarding a return to school report, including mask wearing for 2021-2022 school year and quarantine issues. Mr. Stousland.
Yes, thank you. Just starting off with this graphic that we do every time. You can see there hasn't been a ton of changes in the last 2 weeks, and this is community burden. So not necessarily the schools, but each of the communities. I did a little, I shouldn't say I did it, it was collectively the area superintendents have a Google Doc, and they put questions out, and then we add information into that Google Doc. And these were several questions that were posed, and you can see the different schools that have committed to different portions of the mitigation for COVID right now. And that first column, it says, it's asking the schools that are using 3 feet for quarantining purposes right now, which means all the other schools in the area are still using 6 feet. You can see there's about 8 schools that are, including Germantown, that use the 3 foot piece. Below that, schools that have committed to optional masks at summer school, and some schools that have decided already face coverings optional for 21-22 school year. You can see there's 5. Well, there's 5 schools that are looking at it. Some have committed, but 5 schools are looking at it. 2 school districts have masks in motion, which means that they're worn indoors and when they're moving about a building. And that's Hartford and Aaron School District. Where face coverings are not required outdoors, you can see again there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 schools in that category. The contact tracing is no longer necessary and quarantine's not assigned. That I can add Grafton to that list. When I put this in the PowerPoint, they hadn't decided yet. And what that means is that they're still contact tracing, meaning if a child was within 3 feet of another child who was positive, they let that family know, and the family has the decision to either send their child or they could keep them at home. It's their choice on that. Obviously, if a student is positive, then they go through the regular quarantining. And with that is that happens, that like what Grafton is doing and a couple other schools are looking at that, is the kind of the caveat to it, and Elmbrook just sent something out last week regarding this, is that the child doesn't have to quarantine if the family doesn't want to, if they've been wearing their mask when they were in close contact. So that's how they've been approaching that. So anyway, that's from area school districts. A couple updates. Elementary, middle school cases. Elementary, we still have one here or there, but it's not as frequent. Middle school continues to have a few cases. High school is where most of the cases are occurring, and Washington Ozaki Health last Thursday shared that they had 60 cases, positive cases in all high schools between Ozaki and Washington County, and Germantown had 30 of those 60 cases of positive cases. And that put us at about 12% of our kids out. If you remember way back in August, we talked about if we hit a number of like 20% or 25%, we'd monitor it. And so we weren't, meaning if it hit those numbers, we would go fully virtual. We're not close to that at this juncture. I know last meeting there was a motion for optional masks for the 2021-22 school year, and we pulled that back because it wasn't on the agenda to be voted upon, and it is today. The other piece that is I'm sharing, because other districts are starting to talk about this, is what I just explained about the quarantining pilot, where contact tracing would still occur, parents would be notified, parents would have the choice to decide if they want their child quarantined or not, and obviously watch for symptoms, and if they do, then we'd ask them to get tested or keep them at home. So, and then I also have Tammy here, and she's going to give the shortened version of her PowerPoint.
Yeah, I will do my best to keep it pretty short.
So you just tell me which slides to hit.
Okay, so this first slide, I just wanted to bring up the CDC and why we kind of follow the CDC. So this first slide just talks about their mission. The CDC is the agency that the healthcare workers and public health workers look for guidance on disease management. Next slide. So what they do, the CDC actually investigates what makes people sick so they can stop an outbreak from spreading. They also work with other agencies like the FDA and the USDA on investigations and follow up with actions on how to prevent the spread. Next slide. So this, of course, did come from the CDC. As you can see, the link is on the bottom on how masks actually work to control infection. So masks help prevent the spread of disease. They block respiratory particles from going into the environment along with any microorganisms they carry. Not only do they block large particles, but they also block particles smaller than 9 microns. When humans speak, more of these particles are released into the air at a further distance than just breathing. And human studies have been conducted that show 80% of these particles are blocked when wearing a cloth mask. Our students do have mask breaks throughout the day. They, for example, recess, snack time, lunch, when getting a drink, and weather permitting, students are taken outside. They are allowed those mask breaks. During, I know, PE, a lot of our elementary PE teachers do take the kids outside, weather permitting, as much as possible, and they do take their masks off, from my understanding. Next slide. Just a bunch of different research articles that show when masks are worn in school, that there is very minimal spread. Next slide. On the flip side, it also shows a bunch of research articles that show the spread inside a closed building when masks are not worn and how it's spread. Next slide. This I thought was actually a pretty good video. It's a 7-minute video that actually has a 3D demonstration of schools and specific areas in schools. So there's a classroom, there's the cafeteria, and then there's the teacher's lounge. And it actually shows as a student is talking and breathing how the particles are released into the air and how far it's spread. They also talk about when the student has a mask on, they also show the decrease in the spread of those particles within the air. We won't show the video, but I did send it to the board and they all saw that. So that was, I just thought, a really good 3D demonstration of how it spreads.
And we can put this PowerPoint on the website too.
Perfect. So this is, I thought, was a really good just visual that the CDC had, talking about 17 schools. They actually did this study in Wisconsin, out in, I think it's Wood County, that out of about 5,000 students, 7 kids who had COVID, 0 of those staff members got COVID, as long as masks were worn in school. There has been no known spread between students to staff, staff to students, students to students. Most of the spread that you would see in school is actually from staff to staff. Next slide. So this is some of the numbers that we've had. So this was actually kind of difficult to get. So what I actually really wanted was the number of students who had illnesses, but we were actually unable to figure that out through Skyward and how it's put in there. So what we did is these are the number of days that students missed that were ill. So if you look at the high school, for the school year of 1920 last year, students missed almost 4,000 school days from being sick. And we were able to differentiate illness versus medical appointments, vacations, other things. This year, we've only had 2,500 missed school days due to illness, and that does include all of our kids who are COVID suspected and COVID positive. So just having COVID positive, that's really what most of those illnesses are. So that's a huge decrease in all of our schools. I don't have county lines on there, but I can say them out loud. I have them here on my phone. So last year, the absences for county line were 984, and this year we're at 564. So it is a huge decrease. Now, again, masks are not necessarily the whole reason why those are decreased. There are other measures that have been in place, as in, small groups, cohorting, staying home when you're sick. We really emphasize that. We really emphasize the hand washing, all of those types of things. Oh, if you want to go back, Brett. So if you look at actually the COVID student cases, those from this morning, I did not include, I believe, the 2 or 3 that we had at the high school today. Those are the amount of COVID cases we had so far this school year. Out of those cases, those are the amount of students that were quarantined based on those cases. Now, I do have to say I think that data might be skewed, and I think those students that are quarantined are actually higher because the way it's pulled from the system. Some of those students are actually quarantined multiple times, where I think that's only counting them once. So that could be a lot higher. I do think that is skewed. But now if you look at that, out of all of those kids that were actually quarantined, there's only a possible, and we have to say possible because we cannot confirm, that only 1 actual transmission from student to student happened in the entire district, and that was at county line. We can't prove that, but based on what we do know with the students' friend group, where they were sitting in school, all of that stuff, that's what makes us think that that happened in school. At the high school, we can determine, based on my conversations with my health aide today, that before April 22nd, we have had 0 transmission in the high school from student to student. We can almost say from 0 from staff to student, from student to staff as well. After April 22nd, we can't really say what is happening. We do not think, based on the data that we have previously, that it's still a spread in school. We do believe that it is outside of school. We do believe it's, friend groups, it's warmer outside, kids are getting together, they're not wearing their masks outside, and they shouldn't have to. So we do still think that it is zero spread within the school. The high number of cases that we're seeing right now is due to outside of school. That's what we still believe. Next slide. So right now, at the beginning of the school year, over the summer and things we could see, CDC was stating that they thought the percentage of household contacts and household spread was about 12%. Now that we had a whole winter of COVID, they're actually looking at 75% of infections happen within live-in family members within 5 days. And that is actually where a majority of our elementary infections have come from, is due to family members having COVID. That is really where it came from, whether it's an older sibling or a parent. That's where I believe a majority of our cases have come in elementary school. Next slide. So we're still here. Oh, it's not 7:59 for high school students. It's 79 as of this morning, 79 high school students. It was actually 75 on Friday, but I got the new total at 79 this morning, so that's why I just didn't get rid of the 5. But this week, FDA is supposed to approve the emergency use for the age groups of 12 to 16 for the vaccine, so that is another positive. We are still at the 89% for staff fully vaccinated, but I just want to make it clear that just because you are vaccinated does not mean you still cannot get COVID. The vaccine is only 95% effective, so you still have a 5% chance of getting the virus. I have had staff members who have been fully vaccinated post 2 weeks, have had symptoms, have had COVID, fully sick. So I just do want to make that clear. So based on all this information I just presented, I actually have a couple different proposals. I actually have 2. So the first one here is based on this school year, and I do think that we do need to make quarantine optional for our students. I do think the parents should have that right to state whether their students should have to be quarantined. As you can see from the numbers that I had listed, it's not spreading in our schools at all. Yes, we still have high community spread, but it's not in our schools. It's not spreading here. I do think that's important. However, I do think that having the optional quarantine for parents is having masks still in place. And the reason is based on all the information, all that research, that chart that I showed you is all because masks are in place. All of the mitigation rules that we have are still in place. Even moving down from 6 feet quarantine to 3 feet quarantine, it's still not spreading, so I do believe that that's really important. The other piece to that too is I still think that within this proposal, that household contacts should still be quarantined because you have the higher transmission rate within your own home than you do within the school. So household contacts, if you have a positive in the household should quarantine, but any contact tracing that happens within the schools, that should be an optional for the parents to have their child quarantined. If a child or a staff member does, within those next 14 days, does have symptoms of COVID, we would have them isolate for the 10 days and request them to get tested as we do now. That's been our procedure all year. I would recommend that procedure to stay in place with the new proposal that I have. The second proposal is for the 2021-22 school year and summer school. I do think that summer school is a really great opportunity to make our masks optional. Masks outside, we already know, even CDC has said that contracting COVID outside is very minimal. Our students are spread out. Having the breeze, being out in open air, does make it less likely to contract the virus. I do also think starting in summer school of this summer, all contact tracing included with the quarantine should be discontinued. And then in the beginning of the next school year, I do feel that we should start to move to all of our previous health guidelines as we had prior to COVID. I also think masks should be optional for the 21-22 school year and not required. So those are my proposals for today. I just have some final thoughts that I would just like to share in regards to all of this. I understand the frustrations of families and staff. I do have them my own as well. My personal opinions do not always match my professional actions as I try to follow my professional practices of my ethics. We have many families and staff on both sides of the pandemic, some wanting absolutely no guidelines, some still wanting every guideline possible. My health aides and I have heard all of it, all sides. This is a process, and we need to be able to find a balance. We need to be respectful to whatever the outcome of tonight's meeting brings. This Wednesday, May 12th, is actually National School Nurse Day. I encourage you to send an email to your school's health aide, thanking them for the hard work they have put in this year. They have worked long hours into the late evenings and on weekends to make sure we are all doing the right thing to prevent the spread of this virus. They deserve your thanks and praise for trying to keep everyone as safe and as healthy as possible. I'd like to thank my health aides for being my rock this year and going on this crazy journey with me. Thank you.
I'd like to make two motions, please. But before I begin, Tammy, we've been on this journey for a year and a half, and you're a rock star. Thank you so much for keeping us safe.
Thank you.
So the first motion would be to make mask wearing optional for the 2021-22 school year, and all quarantine and contact tracing to be discontinued.
Second. Second.
Any discussion?
Tammy, real quick, can you just tell us again, why are you comfortable with making the decision about masks for next year? Because of the unknown, and you know, obviously we have parents that are concerned. So just help us understand completely.
So there's a couple different pieces to that. So number one, we do have a really high percentage in our district of staff that are vaccinated, even though we do have some that are not, and you still can like I said, get COVID even with the vaccine, because it is only 95% effective, which we do have staff that have contracted it after the vaccine. We also will have a higher herd immunity, not only just with the vaccine, but with also other people who already have antibodies from contracting the virus themselves. Our numbers of students 16 and over who are getting vaccinated are rising on a daily basis. We are averaging about 5 fully vaccinated students on a daily basis every day. By the end of the school year, the vaccine will be available to 12 and older for those that wish to have it. We also need to make sure that we are starting to be exposed to viruses and other infectious materials moving forward. It is actually a really good time at the beginning of the school year to have that whole summer where we're starting to expose ourselves. Summer is a really good time because we're going to be outside, it's going to be warm weather, we're not closed in, because once we get closed in, we need to have that immune system be built up already. We need to start to expose ourselves. I do have a feeling that some of our colds are going to be worse. Our kids are going to be out sicker longer, so we need to get our body's immune system back to where it needs to be.
Thank you. And thank you and your staff for their tireless work this year. We are very appreciative of everything.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Michael?
Yeah, I believe these are good motions because I think everybody knows I like to give parents and students something to look forward to. And talking about the September 2021-2022 school year, if we don't do it then, when? You know, everybody's getting vaccinated. A lot of folks have had it already. You know, it's time. So unless something drastically changes to force us to bring it back before September, this is a good motion tonight. And thank you for that, Tammy.
Bob, looking for a clarification on your motion. Is it ending quarantining immediately?
No, for the 2021, I have a second motion on that.
So this motion is for
next year.
School year.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
I have a second motion to move forward with the quarantine pilot as communicated earlier for the remainder of the 2020-21 school year.
Second.
Second. Michael. Any discussion?
Are we going to still do contact tracing but make it optional?
Yes, so the contact tracing would still be in place, and we would call parents and let them know that their child has been identified as a close contact, exact same thing as we do now, but only telling them that you have the option to come pick up your child, or they can remain in school. It is the parent's choice, but we definitely will ask to please monitor your child for symptoms for the next 14 days. And please notify the school of any symptoms that do occur.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right. Any other motions? Any other comments about this topic?
I have a question, just real quick. You're saying we need to build up our immune system.
Yes.
Right, which
Yes.
I'm huge
Mhm.
of. Why shouldn't we start building up our immune systems now?
And you're right.
This is a perfect time to start building up their immune systems. Perfect.
And the reason I say wait till summer is because of that balance. I have quite a few staff members who did come to me after the last board meeting and said they would quit Johnny on the spot if we got rid of masks this school year. We do need to try to find a balance, and it is a process. And I think getting rid of the quarantining, because as you can see, we don't have the spread, but keeping the masks will help keep that balance and help keep our staff members and some of those students or families who still want the masks and keep them feeling safe while we can all stay in school for the remainder of this school year.
All right, Tammy, thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to get control of this meeting again.
Thanks, Tom.
Any other discussion from the board?
I'm sorry, I do have one more comment.
Any other discussion from the board?
No.
All right, we'll move on. Item B, discussion and possible action regarding fully virtual options for 2021-2022. Mr. Southland.
Yes.
As elected officials who are public servants, we pay for our taxes. If we start pulling our children from school because you are not acting in the best interest of our children or their parents, what is the school district going to do when they start losing taxes? Because we'll start demanding our taxes back if you're not teaching them.
I said last meeting that it was on the agenda that we finish this school year.
Yeah, but it's not on the agenda today to end masks for the rest of the year. I didn't write the agenda, so I can't comment on why it's not on there.
No, the superintendent didn't. The previous board president proposed the agenda, and it wasn't on the agenda for a reason. That's not to say that it can't be on the agenda at a future meeting.
If you have teachers who are willing to quit Johnny on the spot over this issue, do they really have the best interest of our students in mind? I think not.
I think you can understand that some teachers may have pre-existing conditions. See, this is the problem in education, because nobody has respect. Y'all don't have any respect for this board. You don't have any respect for each other, or nobody who has an opposing view than you. My God, how are we gonna ever keep our hands and go from that? That's just it. Like this, these two board meetings have broken my heart, period. And it ain't a color thing. I'm just learning that people just don't respect nobody's point of view if it's opposite of yours. My God, there's no middle here. They clearly just gave you a middle to the end of the year, and we're opposing it again.
Don't tell me I don't have respect.
I'm saying I'm not seeing any respect. I'm not gonna argue with nobody. I'm gonna say this. They gave y'all a middle ground. Why are we always digging a hole? It's an option. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask,
Tom.
All right,
Tracy has a comment.
Tammy, you
Okay.
can sit down.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
One theme, excuse me.
Folks, it's the mask thing for this year is not on the agenda. We cannot discuss or take action tonight, period.
I'll provide some balance because we've listened to both sides tonight, I'll present the counter to what you guys have been saying. And that is, we have families in this district who have made the decision earlier this year to come back because of the mitigation, because we've shown it hasn't spread. We've shown that some of these things that we've implemented have worked. They've come back. If we completely eliminated everything, we will have families for the final few weeks of the school year come to us, come to Brett, come to their principals and say, we're pulling our kids, figure it out. And, okay, I've listened to your side. I'm just presenting the alternative side. And that's the balance that we are working and trying to find, that middle. And
All we're asking for is choice. The people that want to wear a mask are free to wear a mask. Don't force those that find it so uncomfortable.
And as of this evening, you have your choice for the summer, you have your choice for the fall.
I think the other part of this is everyone just wanted to vote so they could see how everyone's doing.
Again, it's not on the agenda tonight. We can't discuss it or take action tonight for the remainder of the school year, all right?
Everyone can submit it, and it just, if we submit and it doesn't make it on, when you have like 400 parents wanting something, you don't put it on, we're asking, well, how do we get it on?
I understand, but I'm not the board president anymore, but we had a conversation 2 board meetings ago where we did have discussion and the board did take action not to move forward with the masks. So the board did take action a month ago on this. That's not to say that it can't be revisited, okay? We heard 2.5 hours of comments. I'm not in charge of that.
Were you handed this? It says, anybody that spoke should have gotten a copy of this. It says how you can get something on the agenda.
Anybody on this side, put your muscles back on, all right?
Yeah, any person or group who would like to have an item put on the agenda shall submit their request to the district administrator no later than 10 days prior to the meeting.
Multiple times by multiple people. I had multiple people tell me they did that, and that's why everyone's wondering why it was not.
It was also done at the last board meeting. I believe it was said that it would be on the agenda.
Yeah, I'll take the fall for that. So.
It's also hard to send emails, multiple emails to the school board and nobody responds. Do you know how frustrating that is as a parent? That only one person, and I will point that person out right there, that has our back. Nobody else responded. Nobody. And that breaks my heart. As a parent, I expect more, and I won't shut up and I won't settle down because I do expect more.
And I think the vote is something that everyone just wants to see. You know, because if you take the vote and everyone takes their stance, then that community knows where everyone stands. And I think that's a transparency that I think everyone is talking about. So, thank you.
All right. Item B, discussion and possible action regarding fully virtual options for 2021-2022. Mr. Stousland.
Yeah, I'm going to hand it to Mrs. O'Brien in a second, but Mr. Heffley had a couple questions. The idea of the virtual option is we know next year we're going to have students that still have a medical condition or have an extenuating circumstance, and they would need a virtual, potentially a virtual option. And for us to create, let's say it's 20 kids spread out K-12, for us to manage those students be very difficult. And so the Kiel option, which isn't Kiel School District personnel, it's a conduit to another platform that many districts use. Appleton uses the same platform. I think McFarland uses the same platform. So it's a conduit to get courses for students to be fully virtual, and they're fully staffed outside. If we had to staff a K-12 type school for 1 year for our kids, we'd be hiring 4 or 5 different teachers to meet all those needs. And it is something, it's an option for our kids if they need to be fully virtual, but we're talking 30 students tops. We're talking, again, they have to submit like an application to do it. It's not going to be 200 kids or 400 kids for virtual. It's too hard for us to try to staff the needs of 20 people or 25 people or students. So that's why this option is being put out there, and then we should hear from our grant if we're in a planning year for our virtual school that we're talking about, and that would just be our own staff and our own programming. This is to give us a year to get to that point. So, Mrs. O'Brien.
Sure, and am I on? I don't know if I'm on.
You're on.
Okay. So as Mr. Southland just said, is that really we are looking to partner with the Kiel School District just for a targeted population of students. And in that population, we are looking to have maybe some of our resident students who are currently attending a virtual school come back to the Germantown School District. And to Mr. Heffley's point, it is $4,700 a year to enroll, or $2,900 per semester. But I also want to point out that for students who open enroll into a virtual school, we are losing over $8,000 of aid for those students. So we have to take that into consideration too when we are designing a program. And yes, we did survey those students who are open enrolled in other virtual schools, and what they are looking for is an established program, which is why we feel the Kiel School District and the partnership would be that established program that we could offer those families who might be attending a virtual school outside our school district.
And I would add to another factor is that, so right now, if we have a student that open enrolls to the Waukesha East School or McFarland or Ripon or Appleton or Merrill, they are no longer our students. They can't participate in anything in our district, sports, activities, anything. In this scenario, there's a legal 6603, I think it is, that then allows the student, even though they're getting service through an outside group, they're still our student. They can still participate in all of our activities. They can actually take up to two classes in our school as well. So it's really keeping our own students, and the money piece. We're losing $8,000 every time a kid leaves open enrollment. So if we're paying $4,000, we're still gaining $4,000 on those students. If those students come back, but also it's really that opportunity for kids who may need that fully virtual option because of extenuating circumstance or medical condition. So.
And then for the board background, I also did provide the other options that we considered as well, and the budgetary impact and the implications of those decisions as well. And I did meet with the continuity of learning team, which is consisting of mostly teachers, and they suggested that this also be our option that we would put forward for the 2021-22 school year.
All right. Any discussion, questions from the board?
I'll
entertain a motion.
Oh, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
I have a few
please.
questions. We have the information that says this is Florida Virtual Learning Platform, right? Did we actually sit in on classes for all levels, elementary, middle, high school, to make sure that they meet our expectations? Do we have what their expectations are? Do they match ours?
I did take a look at the course syllabus or the course offerings, and we talked about how they would match kind of our course sequence. There is some ability to like change the sequence of when units are taught, but again, that would be controlled by Kiel. So we're still working out how much control we could have over that course sequence.
I think you mentioned it's also in the background about limiting it to 30 students. Is that our limit, or is that Keel's limit that they would impose on us?
That would be our limit that we were looking for that targeted population of students.
Okay, thank you.
What happens if we don't meet that limit?
It's fine.
Then we don't
If we
need.
have two kids, it's 2 kids.
Then, you're right, correct. It's up to 30 students.
Okay.
So I understand the trying to get folks back into the district because we do gain that money back, or at least a portion of that money back. With our current virtual community, what about them? Because obviously the goal is to bring the kids back into the district. Totally understand that, fine with it. But there's obviously still a population currently, and probably most likely, and some of them may have medical issues and those type of things. Where do you think we stand with those folks? Because they're already in our district, but by enrolling with the Keel program, that's actually a net cost to us. So while we've capped it at 30, we probably have some expectation or hope. You know, we'd like to get 30, but what if we only get 5, but the other 25 are populated with current students that are virtual that now want to participate in that program? The overall package at that point, and I'm not going to do math real quick right now, but at that point, it's actually a net cost for us. So help me understand kind of the balance, what we're doing to draw those people in. Are we going to market things? I mean, what are those things that?
Yeah, and that's part of this. I just brought this slide back up, but if you go to the third column over all the way down, the districts that are looking at that families would apply to what they call the homebound type application. So families would have to submit an application and their reasons for that, and we think that will help us figure it out. Now also we're going to have to survey families like we did last August, and their intent to come back, and as a board we'll have to make a decision. Are we going to provide a hybrid option like we did for this school year, or the school year is the school year like it was 2 years ago? There wasn't virtual options 2 years ago, so that would come back in front of the board.
If we approve this tonight, though, why would we offer a hybrid?
No, I'm saying it's still like, well, who knows what conditions. I don't think they're going to get worse or like they were last year. But let's say they did, and all of a sudden 30% of our kids or families are asking for virtual, then we'd have to refigure. I don't think that's the case, but that's just the scenario.
I would hate to use the word pivot, but we might have to do that if we come up upon a scenario like that.
Okay, well, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I move to partner with the Keel School District to offer a virtual option to a targeted population of students for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Sorry, actually, I have maybe a couple more questions. We've defined it as 21-22 school year. Worst case scenario is we don't get the grant in June. We'll have to revisit, since this motion is only for the next school year. What if for the 22-23 school year we don't have the appetite to continue the program?
That's when I think we have to revisit it either way, and I think we need to continue to monitor those students who choose this option, and we will have to take a look and monitor those students and monitor this program before we would make a decision for the 22-23 school year.
I've got a question, getting back to Tracy's comment about the upcoming year, and for our own population of kids that are in virtual right now, and we don't know what we don't know in terms of where we're going to be at in September of this coming year. So, Brett, is there a probability that we will have a hybrid version? We'll be doing virtual?
I don't think so. I think we're, you know, already we have 85% of our students are in person, and I think that will get. I think that number will go even smaller. So I don't think so, but it's something that we revisit as a whole board.
No, I know, but Mike, I guess why are we doing both? If we think we may even be doing hybrid in the fall, why would we be doing this?
Yeah, I don't think we're doing.
We've matured a lot.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do a hybrid. I think this helps us with the kids with extenuating circumstances that they would really need the virtual.
Thank you.
I mean, most of it medical.
And when was the last time we surveyed the students who we did lose, those families, as far as?
I surveyed them in, I don't know if
February,
it was
was it?
November, October, November.
And then we did again, oh, was it that much earlier? Sorry.
I mean, I can't remember anymore, but we did survey them and got their feedback. And, you know, one of the questions was, if we had our own program, would you consider it? And they, about 85% of them said they would if it was an established program. So, and there were obviously the maybes on there too, so.
You also have the added benefit for those families to try to draw them back that they could attend a couple classes in our school. They can participate in our activities.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Mike?
Yeah, it's the tech ed students. So they may take this virtual option through Kiel, but they could come back to a school to take a shop class, is my understanding.
Yes, that's correct. And we actually, a lot of the platforms, just due to the nature of technology education, there aren't a lot of online technology education course offerings. So that would be something that would be, I think, appealing to students. That and something like the art classes and music classes would also be appealing for those students to take up to 2 classes here in the Germantown School District.
Any other discussion?
As you maybe can tell, I'm hedging a little bit because if we last surveyed those students that we lost in basically the early winter of the previous year, that doesn't tell me we have a high level of confidence that we'll be able to draw them back. So, and that's the key piece to making this work. So,
And I think that's why we set our number at 30, because 66 kids are, we know we're not going to get them all. We also know we have, I know 6 kids off the top of my head that are out right now for medical reasons. So in that combination, that's kind of how we came up with that, with that number.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
nay.
Nay.
That motion carries. All right, item C, discussion and action to approve donations.
Yes, I'd ask that the board approves an anonymous $800 donation to the high school softball program.
I'll entertain a motion.
Oh, I'd like to thank the donor for their generosity and approve the donation as listed. And thank you, anonymous donor. We appreciate it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That carries. All right, item D, discussion and action to approve 2021-2022 teacher contracts. Mr. Southland.
Yes, I'll hand that to Mr. Nowak.
Thank you. As you may recall, at our last meeting, we brought forward a staffing plan in consideration of the approval of that staffing plan for the 21-22 school year. We wish to bring forward 270 teacher full-time contracts. This doesn't take into account retirements or leaves of absence that we're aware of at this point in time. As usual practice, we'll bring forward additional contract requests in the months ahead and leading into the start of the school year, so the remainder of the school year and obviously throughout the summer. Additionally, we're recommending the issuance of letters of intent for 17 part-time teachers. The specific FTE for each part-time employee will be solidified, and the teacher will receive a teaching contract for the 21-22 school year. A list of full-time and part-time teacher contracts recommended for 21-22 school year has been furnished to the board in confidential means. We ask that you give approval for contracts at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Nowak? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the issuance of 270 full-time teacher contracts and letters of intent for 14 part-time teachers.
17 part-time.
17 part-time, thank you.
I will second.
Long night.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right, item E, discussion and action to approve resignations.
Yes, Mr. Nowak.
Mr. Stelzner.
Thank you. Christopher Shrewby recently submitted his letter of resignation effective Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. Christopher was hired in September of 2020 on a limited term contract as a business teacher at Germantown High School. We're asking for approval of his resignation. I do want to point out at the bottom the language around liquidated damages. That's different than the language that you'll usually see. Usually it's language that relates specifically to regular contracts. Because this is a limited term contract, it calls for a $500 liquidated damage fee that can be assessed simply for breaking the contract. Under the regular teacher contract, the teacher needs to seek employment elsewhere for liquidated damages to go in effect. So at this time, we ask that you approve the resignation.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the resignation of Christopher Shrube and thank him for his service to Germantown School District.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right, item F, discussion and action to approve final teacher layoff notices. Mr. Southland.
Yep, and it's back to Mr. Nowak.
Thank you. On Thursday, April 29th, 2021, Jeffrey Sager was issued a preliminary notice of consideration of non-renewal of his teaching contract. Accordingly, a final notice of non-renewal of a teaching contract must be provided prior to May 15th, 2021. At this time, we are requesting approval to issue a final notice of non-renewal.
I'll entertain a motion.
I will move to approve to issue a final notice of non-renewal to teaching contract for Jeffrey Sager.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? And this requires a roll call vote. Loth?
Aye.
Borden?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Reineman?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Soderberg?
Yes.
Yes. That motion carries.
I would just like to add to that this is a layoff notice because of reduction in force, not a performance issue. It's purely just a reduction in staff. So.
Thank you, Mr. Stelzner.
All right, item G, discussion and action to approve CISA 1 contract for 2021-2022. Mr. Southland.
Yep, I'll start with this. This is our annual CISA 1 contract. You can see the value is at $197,000, $573,000. Just a little history going back in 2016-17, the contract was $226,000. 2017-18, it was $132,300, but we also did include the deaf and hard of hearing teacher, which is about a $90,000 cost, so that would put it in the $222,000 range. 2018-19, it was $289,000 contract. 19-20 was roughly, when you add in the deaf and hard of hearing teacher and part-time nurse, it was $223,000. 2020-2021 was roughly $250,000. So this is a somewhat of a decrease for this upcoming year. And with these contracts, these are estimated services. So if if we don't use them all, we don't pay the estimated amount. We pay for the hourly and the services that we get. But I also have the CISA 1 contract is mainly made up of special education fees and funds and some teaching and learning. So if there's any specific questions, we have Todd and Brenda here too.
All right, any comments or questions from the board? I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the CISA 1 contract for the 2021-2022 school year.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And I will entertain one final motion.
Move to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned at 10:30. Thank you everyone for coming, and drive home safe.